6:35.
Yeah.
September 12th, 2017, we're at the North Boardroom.
No, we're not.
We're at the Ledge Street Administration Building.
Just seeing if someone's.
I was distracted by the fact that we didn't have audio
The
there.
microphone. What's in your bottle?
Is that on now?
Yep.
All right, we're Finance Committee, 6:35, starting up. President from the committee, myself, Mr. Hollowell, Mr. Kaufman, also President, Mr. Farrington, and Ms. Hohensie, and a host of others, including Mr. Donovan and Superintendent Mosley. The first item is, that's not on our agenda as the first item.
No, it's
Will
the
be
second
first
item on the agenda
is
because
the,
Kathy is ready to rock, so we don't want to hold her up.
Okay. Okay, so I am here today, I guess everyone, in case people don't know, I'm a data analyst, work at the Nashua School District, and Howard Kaufman asked me to see what I could do to create a dashboard to view budget trends. So there's 3 years of Access database to the past 3 years. And I'm just going to show you sort of what I'm just talking about for a second. So what you would typically get in the past would be 2 reports. One would be this budget report. And it would be like, it's like 130 something pages, okay? And just
careful how you talk about that. That's Dan's baby right there.
No,
it's a
that's
beautiful
fine.
thing, it's a beautiful thing, and so for instance, it would have all the schools in it, and I don't know if you can see the pointers here, but, so the program would be like math or music, those have codes in them, and then there's commodity, sort of commodity items, benefits, pension, wages, and this code here is like a code in the database that you can, break it up, parse it, and tell what all these pieces are, okay? So in addition to that, so I took these things from the 3 years so I could combine them, and then I also went to the state site, and let me see if I can get this so you can see it, because I'm having difficulty with this. And the state basically has codes, so like art, things from this number to this number would be regular education, and then other ones would be vocational programs, special programs, all the state categories, okay? So now, what we would have is 3 years of the data, all instead in Excel. So I took it out of the database and put it into Excel and parsed it with columns and everything so people can, filter it and use it. So let me just show that for a second. So this is, so I'm having trouble with the size of this because of, so we'll try to make it fit in the screen so we can, as best we can here. Okay, so there's some examples of what you might want to do here. So if you were interested in like what are we spending on, kindergarten, you could go to regular education. You don't actually have to do that, but you could just actually go straight to kindergarten. But for this example, I'm going to do that. And then what it would do is it would show you in the bottom down here, you'd get a nice report of like how much is spent at each school. Oh, you can't really see that. Okay, so let's move it over. So there's the state category, the program category, what the school is, and then the amounts for each years, and then on the bottom is the total for the 3 years. And also, what you get when you do this is there's an automatically generated table on the side, so you get like a beautiful little picture, if you like pictures better, of, okay, so once again, okay, so you see those are the 3 years, and this would be, each of the schools and what they spent for the 3 years on kindergarten
Is there a way to flag the Title I schools?
you can just filter out, okay, so yes, you can do that. So if you just care about the Title I schools, then you would just select the schools from the district here. So, so you would, instead of, having all of them be selected, right, you would select Amherst Street, and then you select Dr. Crisp, and then you select Fairgrounds Elementary School, and then Ledge Street.
Can you add a
and then
button
Mount
just for
Pleasant.
Title I?
And then you would, you can add, like, okay, so I should take a step back. So the goal of me presenting here is like, how did the people on the board want to use this data, and what is useful to you in different formats, right? That's the whole purpose of this. It's like, I just took it, can bind it, there's lots of stuff now we can do with it. It'll certainly make it way easier to report on the data in different ways, right? So, right now, there's no like field for Title I. So you can do what I did and click on the Title I schools, and then all of the Title I schools would come up, and then you would get the report on just those Title I schools. Oops. Which is sort of hard to really fit into the screen, but so you get just that part of it. All right, so the general idea here is that, you know, that you can sort through if you care just about a school, you can get the data on the school. If you care about like a state category, if you care about a year, in the upper left-hand corner here, there is just the, I'm gonna have to make this smaller so how do I do that? Right.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is. So let's have to make it smaller.
Oh, you have pull down, oh, you have,
See, so you have a pull down for the years and all these different things. I'm trying to make it, it's not really cooperating with fitting on the screen, so. But it does fit on any laptop. It doesn't have to be a big laptop like this. It does fit on the whole picture does. All right, so now if you go and, if you want to go back to start here, you have to click these little, I think they look like cocktail glasses, but you can call them whatever you want. They're, you know, you're resetting the filters, basically. Okay, so now you have everything you want. And so I had like another example where I think you could look at, for instance, vocational programs in the, up here, and then go and say, well, I'd like a report on that, and you could actually collapse these down because you don't want like the multiple entries here. So I'm just going to collapse this for a second, and then it would give you the, you know, what's spent on vocational education in the district, and also it would give you a, you know, one which they get a graph by the years with the different categories of that. Okay, so there's lots of stuff that could be done with this, and I need your feedback for what would be most useful. Okay, the next thing is that there is another worksheet in here, which is the employee worksheet.
So Kathy, can I do,
Yeah.
like, could I click on athletics somewhere?
You can, you
Yeah.
can click, athletics was in there, so if I go back to the budget book, you can't actually, there's not like a subcategory athletics, so this is the general thing. Like if you guys want like to add in, like, let's say, I want Title I, I want all of athletics. I mean, right now, I forget what athletics comes under. Let me go
we
back.
just saw it too.
Well, it's, you can click
There it
on
is in
one,
the
you
middle.
can click on like basketball or something.
No, but
right?
athletics is summarized right above.
Okay, all right. Let me-
It's in alphabetical order.
It's right above
Baseball.
baseball.
Adult continuing education, athletics, middle, third one, third column. Third column.
One more over, column down.
Oh, yeah, okay. But this might not have all of athletics, that, how the data, okay, so I'm just taking,
$73,000,
I'm
perfect.
taking what's in the database, right, too, and you're taking the database from probably the city database, okay, so, so we don't wanna like, we can add like filters on this, but in general, you can tell from this data that if I went, other instructional programs, if I just go to other instructional programs, for instance, I think that's gonna get a bunch of like the athletics for you. So if I just
So
went to.
Kathy, you're always looking backwards, right? Here,
What do you mean I'm always
Yes.
looking backwards?
right.
She has the last 3 years.
Yeah,
of data.
yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
is there, okay, well, I wanna-
Okay, so if I go to other instructional programs, this is my point here, that sort of will pick up most of the athletics, okay? So if I go down here, so you can see it, see, so then you'll get a report for all the athletics, and you could get, I think I can do the chart for it too, which is gonna go very wide across the screen. So it will tell you boys track, girls, right? So that's all the athletic programs, okay? So, so it's basically anything that was in that database before, but now you can filter on it, right? So that's the idea. Okay, so where was I? Okay, employees. Okay, so if we go back, let's go to the database here. If I close this one. So do you have a question?
Nope.
Okay. So there's another personnel budget detail report that's like 90 pages or something, and that's of this thing. The same thing was done with the, you know, sort of decoding of it, and so now what we have is, we have, you know, this employee headcount thing with the same thing. So you can sort by, I only did this for This current year, it could also go back, I just didn't do it for the other years, because I was sort of, I think I got to a point that it was better to get everyone's input and get what you want than to like keep making it, you know, crazier and crazier. So, this school or district on the top here, you could click on that. You can click on, you know, any of the programs. The state categories are over here on your right, and the job codes are here.
So could you click on, say, career and technical education?
Yeah, right, so that's, you know, that's what the headcount is for that, okay? Right.
So that's administration, or in the
Yes,
administration
that's the
section, right?
administrative piece
Right,
of it,
right,
yes.
right, right.
But you
So-
could, we could click on, can we click on if we do career and tech education,
Sure.
can you then click on CTE childcare and it will add it to it, or does that just,
What you're right here, no, you can hold, yes, you can hold down, what you have to do is you hold down the control
Control.
key, and you hit that, and then
Okay.
you get that too, okay?
okay, so
that's-
you could add in all the
Right.
CTEs to get them, I mean.
Right, so one thing I could do too is if people knew, like, hey, I wanna learn a little bit more about this, I could just answer you know, like quickly get people up to speed on like quiz to do it. If that, I mean, I'm not volunteering anything, so you can tell me what you want. All right,
Kathy, I didn't have to volunteer.
right.
I mean, I asked a simple question, and this is what a deep dive look. This is a superficial dive for Kathy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So the head count there, that's FTE?
Yes.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
might want to say FTE there instead of head count.
Oh, you want that up here, like that?
It's
you
always
call
a
that?
point of confusion,
Okay,
how many people work in the district
I don't know.
versus
It's
what the
not-
FTEs are of those people.
Right, because there might be two people making a full position. Is that what you're
Right,
thinking?
so you often get people saying, oh, there's, 1,100 teachers. Well, there's 1,100 teachers, but there's really only 1,000 positions, maybe
Right.
some of them partial.
so the data, you know, that's in the database has names and everything. I took all the names out so that, you know, you're just really looking at the non-name data. That could be in or out, I just took that out. So it was, you know, made things, whatever, nicer for people, and so, some people don't get stuck on that. Okay, anyway, so if I went to, the employee thing, you can sort of see what you can do there. Then there's another whole idea, which is really the trend thing, which is sort of Howard's original, you know, concept, which is he requested like, year over year, you know, increases, sort of the concept of that from the first year, okay? So what this one actually says is what the orange line is the percent increase, you know, in 2016 over the past 3 years, and then the gray things, which is on the left, is, you know, how much money we're really spending. So we're spending like, you know, the biggest expense is pensions, you know, followed by tuition out of district, followed by transportation, and the big increase areas, you know, retire, separation pay, contract services, and I don't know, electricity. So this also might, you know, show up category anomalies in the data, but, so we'll iron those out, but.
Why is electricity?
I know, I knew that would like, it's okay. Anyway, so the.
No, I understand that
Now
question.
he's shaking his head.
I would have thought electricity usage, electricity costs were down.
It's good, because I was asked to put in by the solar people.
She was prepping for us. This is all, now we jump in.
So, yeah. Okay.
Our rates have gone down, but our usage has stayed pretty, well, it's going up slightly.
It's gone up some, yes.
But not 30%.
No.
So that's one of those anomalies that.
Yeah, we could
Does it go up
take a
because
look.
of
There could be
weather?
something else in the category, it could be my era, you know, there's like a lot of different things. I mean, I just sort of translated stuff, what was after the database.
Guys leaving the lights on too much at night. That's the biggest
It
problem.
could be.
No, we have,
Just-
no, we have a guy that makes sure they're not on.
No,
He's
he
not doing.
retired.
He's not doing his
He
job.
retired. June 30th, though.
Replacement.
Okay, and so this one picture here, for instance, is expense increases, you know, since from that 3 year by the state category. So you can see here, the blue line is 2015, the, you know, orange is 2016. So you can see, like, transportation is, you know, is the highest increasing thing, and then special
So our
programs.
spending has gone down,
No, that's year over year. So the like, if you go from the first year, the blue line is how much it went up. So it went up, in the second year, it's up 10.6%. Based on the first year, then 18.6% based on the first year of the 3 years.
so vocational programs only went up just under a 1% increase. year
Right.
over year.
Right, so they're at the bottom of the category. All right, so, and then, so just, I'm just trying to give ideas here. This would be, I have to check what it is, increase in program expenses. So you can see here, speech and hearing, and I'm trying to get it.
So we hired a couple of extra people there, so
But
that's
it's a
probably
small
why
amount
it's
of
the.
money.
Yeah,
Right.
No, I'm just saying that would
No, I
account
know.
for the spike.
right, and then, for instance, you can do it, what's this one here? So, you know, curriculum, supervision of curriculum development. So anyway, you can sort of see the different category, you know, if you want to look at it. So you have these ideas, you have like schools, you have programs, you have commodities, and you know, have, you know, these other categories.
When we say monitors, is that lunch monitors?
Yeah.
All right, so the final thing is that Howard also had a request for, like, what if I don't have Excel 2010 or better on my machine? So there will also be a version, which is this, which is basically still all the data, okay? And it's filterable, so you could pull it up on your phone or something, because, you know, you don't need to have pivot tables or anything. Now, it's not gonna automatically summarize stuff for you or anything, right? Because you don't have, like, you don't have pivot tables, which are aggregating it. You're not gonna get a fancy picture for free, okay? But you can use it on your phone, you can use it on any device, and it's a quick way if you were like trying to, you know, look up some information. So that's all I have, so.
Is there a way to compare? One of the things I'm trying to understand, we talk about equity in the district. And one thing that I'm trying to understand, and I think I've shared this with you, is I'm trying to understand what we spend, what resources we have applied to the core courses in high school, I'm just speaking about, toward graduation. All the stuff that we have to, for the kids to graduate, these are the courses they need to take. Then optionally, we have AP classes, we have CTE classes, and the remediation piece to get them so they can graduate.
I think that, like, I think we exchanged an email, I think like 90% of that, yes, you can find in there. I think there was one category, and I do not remember off the top of my head right now, that it's really not in that data, okay? But the rest of it is sort of there, that you can figure out the, you know, the head count in the categories, because now you have all these categories to filter by.
Though, that could be tricky. You say AP, for example. A teacher may teach 2 regular math courses and 2 AP math courses. There's not going to be any breakout in there between what's AP and what's regular. It's just going to be the cost of the teacher. It doesn't assign it to AP per se.
Okay, but wouldn't the classroom be attached to an AP class?
No, there's nowhere that we
You
attach.
can't flag an AP class?
You
to
could
know?
flag a class, but it's only, you gotta find out who's the teacher that's teaching it. They may only teach one AP class, and
There were other
that
problems.
data isn't in this.
I'm remembering other problems too, like you wanted to know resources, like computer resources assigned to a room or something like that. It's not, like, that level of information is not in this
Right.
data at all.
It's connecting to another whole databases in order to make that.
Well, I mean, I don't know that this is the time to do it. I just want to understand. I believe we have to have the clear emphasis is the core courses, then to ensure that they can pass, which is the remediation, the CTE option, and we are a regional technical center. I think we need to invest as one, and then the AP classes. And when you only have 52% of your kids going on to college, which is the latest data that I have, I want to feel as though we are half on vocational and we are half on college bound, because that's what the kids are doing. The courses should match.
The CTE and, I don't know, regular ed, I don't know what you'd call it.
I-
Are those that you could do?
Right,
Right.
you just
You
couldn't
have-
do the AP
CTE
piece.
is broken out just because of the way
Right.
we have to.
You can't do
manage
AP and
things
you
with the
can't do
state.
assignment of, like, computer resources up to on the class level.
So the
Just not.
AP classes would just come in as a core course? I mean,
It would
you
be a
couldn't separate them
standard-
out.
Right.
It'd come as a high school.
They'd roll up
course.
in as any other course.
Yeah, because it's not done by course, it's done by person or type of course. It's not, math isn't broken out between AP and regular math, it's just math.
So, and there is no way to break that out.
And you're saying no CTE teacher teaches?
No, CTE is in there, yeah.
But the
there's-
CTE teachers could teach regular and CTE.
They could.
That's already broken out?
But most of the CTE teachers teach CTE, that's what
Yeah,
they teach.
most
They
of
don't,
them-
they
most of
don't,
them are
whereas AP
classified.
teachers don't just teach AP. They teach,
Right, so
Algebra,
if you
they
wanted,
teach
right,
geometry.
if you wanted
But
the
what's
math,
the-
sorry.
I'm sorry, I have a question. What's the genesis of the question around breaking out the teachers? What are we trying to get at? What's the purpose?
That's what I'm here to like, that's what I
I-
wanna
I-
know, like how are you gonna use the data? That's exactly my question. How are you gonna use, how do you, the board wanna use this? And, you know, what should I do going forward, if anything, or, you know, is this?
Well,
My
I
answer
understand,
to-
I understand what Howard's saying, right? I mean, you may not like the
Implications.
implication of that, right? But I think what he's saying, and I'm not sure I agree with it, but I'm saying, he's trying to say, if we're really trying to make sure kids are graduating, right, then your core courses are the ones that are the most important. That may or may not be true, but, so you ought to be spending whatever percent of resources you need to spend, I don't know how you define that, on those core courses. And then if you look, if it turned out that AP courses was taking up 25% of your budget, which it probably isn't, then, okay, well, maybe you should think about how the AP courses are run, and how many students can be in them, because it would allow you to move resources somewhere else.
So I guess my, just a couple of things. Just going on that, there are a couple of things to consider, well, for our kids and just kind of putting out to the general public. If we look at math, there's a sense of readiness. So some of our kids are taking math, we'll just take AP math. Some kids have the ability, that's self-selecting. So when kids self-select, they are willing and able to say, okay, I want to really take a college level math course at AP. Now, we want to talk about prerequisites for kids and how is that in terms of money allocation, then we have to really look at, this isn't just a high school or CTE. I would actually ask us to look at kind of the middle school and how they're being prepared to not just take the class. I'll even do one better. Not take the class, but pass the class. Just because you're taking algebra doesn't mean you're passing. And just because you got a D in algebra, that could be a 60 or a 59-ish. So I think it's a kind of a loaded question in a sense of, you're asking about resources, and I would just dovetail on that and just say, what is their readiness once they take algebra? Are they well prepared to engage geometry and successfully pass that? And then after that, you're talking about algebra 2 and then trigonometry, potentially AP. So those are kind of different silos to look at when we're examining the big picture, so to speak.
But in terms of analyzing a budget, we're not, so in finance, right, we're looking at, okay, how do you manage resources?
Mhm.
So in my mind, what I like about this is being able to see things like those items that we may have control over, electricity, natural gas usage, those kinds of things, transportation. I mean, it reinforces all the things we already know, right? Transportation is ridiculous, the amount of money we spend on transportation. I don't know how we solve it, right, but that's a big problem. The CTE versus others, I don't know how we manage, there's a certain amount of money we have to spend on CTE because we are a regional
Mhm.
center, and we should. There's things that aren't in here, like the Perkins grant, the Title I, Title II funds. So if you're trying to do things about looking at equity between elementary schools, it looks like people, like places like Ledge Street, don't get the kind of resources they need, but there's all these funds that go to them, right, that actually makes it that the dollars per student there are higher than Bicentennial, right? So it's not necessarily the be-all, end-all for that stuff, but I think it's better than a 130-page book to look at the budget. So, I like being able to look at data in different ways, right? And that doesn't mean we're gonna come to any grand conclusions on what we should do. Probably won't come to any agreement on what we should do, even if we come to conclusions. Mr. Farrington.
Yeah, excuse me, I was just going to say, if I understood Howard correctly, that he felt like in the budgetary process, we should direct maybe half of our money towards the AP courses in that and half in another area. But I don't think that we can do that as long as we continue to allow students to select courses at the high school, because they define where the money goes in the scheduling process by selecting AP course or Algebra 1, whatever it is that they're going to do.
But if only 52% of your kids are college bound, then we have to, in my opinion, we need to provide the remaining half an equal opportunity toward career and vocational. And course selection, I mean, we have a terrific machine lab that's sitting empty. So we're not successful in filling classes, even with high advanced equipment that we have. So.
But that's not a matter of not spending enough money on those
But
courses.
we're-
We have all the
but
equipment, we
the
spend a lot of
kids-
money on the equipment.
Getting
But
the
the
kids
kids
to take.
don't know about it, or they're not inclined because
They're
of
not
whatever reason,
inclined.
they're not, they don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the
Yeah.
reasons why they don't talk about it.
Mr. Farrington.
I was just gonna say, that's not something we correct here in the budget process or in finance. That's something that takes place in the school. The pathways, guidance counselors, people like that, working with the parents, working with the kids, helping them find things, helping them explore some of the CTE courses. We have to sell this stuff at the school or make them aware of the, I don't think we do a good enough job at that. I think, first and foremost, you have to get somebody, I think when you work with if you have conversations with the people who build the schedules, they'll tell you that the CTE programs live or die primarily based on the quality of the instructor. And so if you've got a really good instructor and somebody can make connection with the kids and has connection, probably prior experience in machining, if you will, and they can make that connection with the kids and they can learn how this is state-of-the-art equipment, this is a good job, you can earn a very good living at it. I think is what will drive moving that money into those areas rather than anything that we do here. And I'm all in favor of trying to do that at that level.
But
If we wait for the kids to decide, we won't be prepared to receive them when they're ready. It's kind of like if they build it, they will come kind of thing. If you build it, they'll come. We
Feel the
need
dreams.
to feel the dreams. You need to be ready for when the demand happens. If not, we sit idle. It's a difficult thing, and I hope maybe separately, and I don't know if it's a curriculum or wherever, we can really take a detailed look at CTE, what the courses are, the offerings, how it's promoted. Like you said, the pathways, there's 16 options that the federal government identifies, career pathways, they call them. So health, medicine is one, but, science and other, engineering, whatever, teaching.
Mr.
Just
Farrington.
Just very briefly, my own observation would be, based on my experience with teenagers, you're gonna have to wait for them to decide, because you're not gonna make them do it.
I'm saying we need to be ready for them when they do decide. So, we're the leaders here. We need to know the trends of the industry, what the needs are, and we need to be offering that class. So I firmly believe if we offered drone flying 101 tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, I agree.
And then,
I'd be signed up for it.
and,
I'd be here
and-
tomorrow.
And the following semester is how to repair your crashed drone. We'd have full employment, and we'd have BAE knocking on the door, or.
Well, but that's why, that's why, so there's the marine robotics program, right? That's why that started, was to try to give, right? But you need a teacher that's motivated in that area, has a particular curriculum for the drone thing. The marine robotics is actually a little simpler than the drone thing, because you
Yep.
gotta be outside all the time, right?
Water helps it.
So, I mean, there's reasons why certain things get picked. And I'm Mr. Farrington, I'm the biggest fan of our CTE program. I think it is underutilized. We've struggled every year to try to figure out how to do it. Not sure this budget analysis is going to be enlightening in that regard. What's enlightening is the number of students that do or don't take CTE programs, So I think we can highlight things like, what this doesn't have in it also is sort of the number of students in those that are serviced by those FTEs, which would give you the cost of AP is that there's not 28 students in those classes, right? There's 15. And so the cost is, the teacher, even if you just take the average cost of a teacher it's more expensive to teach AP than it is to teach something else. Add to that often your AP teachers are teachers who've been here a long time, right, so it's more expensive in that way. So I think there's some things that I think this is helpful. It's much more friendly than either looking, even when we force Mr. Donovan to hand us Excel spreadsheets. I think there's very few of us that end up doing anything with them because it's hard to categorize all these things. And I don't know what all the numbers mean, but Mr. Donovan does, and I always gotta look them up. So
Kathy,
I like that.
I have a question. Can you do student enrollment?
Yeah, so I think there's two areas of like feedback from my, like, just the data perspective, not like whatever the agendas are behind the data perspective. One is, what other data would you like added in, right? Clearly, there's all the X2 data, okay? And then you mentioned there's Title I school funding. So, I mean, like, so in other words, you could, you know, join this data together in a way that it was useful, or at least provide it so that you can match it up in the same place, right? And say, well, this is this category, like, you know, there's those, you know, this category of math or CTE, and then there's this enrollment in from students. So you can do that, okay? It's a snapshot in time. It's not gonna necessarily, I'm just saying the downsides of it, it's not necessarily gonna match the data from the budget date, you know, unless you did it on here's the date that the budget data came out, you're not necessarily gonna match like how many students are enrolled, you know, so everything's not gonna match up.
Well, it's always a year late, too, right? We're looking back.
You're looking at
You're always
historical
gonna
data
look,
here.
you're gonna
so
look
we're
back
not- We
historically.
can't match last year's enrollments to this year's with this tool.
Right, but I'm just saying,
We'd have
if
to
the
do that
budget
differently.
picks this date and X2 picks this date and time, that, even if you pick the same date, they may not agree, okay? But I'm pretty sure if you pick different dates, you know, people are moving around and stuff like that. It'll be close enough, but it won't be exact, right? So I think there's two areas. So there's adding any other data in, if people had requests for that, and then there would be just the presentation itself and the delivery of it, right? You know, and getting feedback on those. think,
So I guess
areas.
what I'd suggest, we could talk all night about things we'd want to add, but they may not be useful. Why don't we have some, we should give this to the rest of the board. There'll be some that will look into it and some that won't. Not sure Mrs. Zeem's gonna be able to bring it up on her flip phone. I'm pretty sure that's not gonna work for her. So she'll have to find some other way to look at it. And then we'll give you feedback if we think there's more things we want to add. I mean, I don't think we can go into details of things what we probably want to do at this moment.
No, I think it's a leap
So we'll start here.
from where we are now, and
we'll
we need to
get,
understand
any
what it's
people
capable.
email me other requirements, and then we'll see on, when does the budget process start for the data for like next year?
We'll start
February,
Okay.
No, when he starts pulling things together, we'll start.
Okay, but when you would, you know, do you see what I mean? So there's another year that comes in after that.
Oh, you mean, yeah,
Right.
put in last year's stuff, that will be done in probably about 6 weeks. So
Right,
you can
so you
add another
see-
year.
So you keep.
Do you want to keep forward?
So do you want to, you know, I mean, I think there's the thing, do you want to keep moving it forward? Do you want to, you know, and then collecting requirements that people would like?
So my first question to you was going to be, okay, Mr. Donovan gives you a new set of data. Is it only you that's going to be able to upgrade this thing to the next year? Is it hard?
Hard for Kathy is not.
No,
Not
Well,
for
I'm
her,
saying
for
is it-
for
yeah,
anybody else.
Yes, exactly.
no, I could make it, I mean, that's a good idea, because it would, you know, if someone else wanted to do it, I would show them how to do it. You know, that might be a good idea,
It's just scriptable.
right?
Yeah, I mean, just down,
It's-
if you're gonna keep year after year, getting the data in each year.
Right, I have I have a system down that I did with it, so I can just explain it to someone else, and it's not, you know, it's not
Or you
really,
could write it down and have somebody else try to do it.
yeah,
that's-
that probably won't work.
Well,
but
see,
yeah.
if that doesn't work, then I'm very concerned about this.
No,
you
I
know,
think-
Get
I
one of
don't-
our
I-
AP students in here and we'll be fine.
Yeah, no, okay, so the suggestion is to document how to add a year in.
Yeah, I think it
that's a
would
good
be,
idea.
I think it would be useful to
Yeah,
know.
I think that's a
and-
good
and-
idea.
And if it's too complicated to do, how do you make it easier to do?
It's
So
not,
that it-
it's not complicated, so I must have just made it seem complicated. I mean, there's codes all
Well,
in
you just said,
there.
if you wrote it down, someone else wouldn't be able to do it.
Well,
That's
in-
usually a sign of it's.
No, I think in my experience, I didn't mean it that way, I would have made a mistake in the writing down. Do you know what I mean? Like, did I
Yeah.
get
But
every
okay, but then
step?
we can just
Right,
refine
there's
the
a debug
documentation.
process in there, right?
Right.
where
Kathy, I'll
would-
test it. I'll test it. I'll be a guinea pig.
You don't have Excel.
On your machine,
You don't even have Excel, Howard, and you asked?
yes, no, I do have Excel. I don't have a current version of Excel.
No, he doesn't have a slicer or pivot table version, so.
No, I'm saying I will be your guinea pig to follow your download, recreate, bring in next year process.
Well, what
So
about
maybe we
Dan,
should
what
get
about
me or
you,
Paul or
that's what I
somebody.
think, like, why don't we have, yeah.
I'm
what do we
offering
do
you
here?
a test subject before you give it to
No,
someone else.
it's fine. I'll just do it in here.
Mr. Farrington, you had a
You have-
questioning look on your face.
Well, we don't have that access to this yet, right?
Yeah, she sent it to us.
She did? Okay, then I'm gonna look for it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's in an email.
But you need
Should've gotten the
Microsoft
last couple
2010,
days.
which
You don't have a
probably
special
okay.
star next to my name, like Kathy sent me?
It's not a star, it's a different code.
It's a different, it went to the spam folder, it's like gone.
Coming right out.
Okay, and I'll email the rest of the board and say here's, we'd like your feedback on it. Okay. Great, thanks.
Thank you. Good job.
Super.
All right,
Nice job, Ted.
Okay.
solar.
I'd like to feel like we should clap. Should we clap? Is that what you think?
Sure.
We're in class.
But don't encourage her.
I want more than clapping for the solar people, for the applause, you know what I'm saying?
She was a person here, so I know.
I have a Mac in my.
Okay.
It'll connect if you have the adapter.
Are you done with this?
Yes.
Kathy, do you have an adapter
Or
for?
they hook us
No,
up.
Looks like he's,
this is my lame broken thing.
It's an you have HDMI out on that?
Are you gonna put something on the screen?
Well, we did make handheld
Don't
ones.
you can
even
put it on
try,
the
it was
screen, that would be
horrible
better.
to do it. I mean, you
Okay.
can have my thing, because it'll be broken.
We'll stick with this.
anyway.
It's a tactile thing. You guys can actually get
It
the
just
feeling.
means they
in your
can't, it
hands.
just means if anybody's watching, they can't.
Why don't you, they could follow along with you if you
Right.
could put it on the screen.
Okay.
Why don't you just give it a
That's what I would
shot?
do.
see
Let's
how
give it a go. Let's give it a
Give it a
shot.
go.
All right, do you want this, you'll return it to me?
It's Apple, it's the
They
most
told me I'm
wonderful
not allowed to
product
give
in
it
the
to-
world, I'm sure it will work
If he's
perfectly.
HDMI out, he should be able to go
Can you go directly right from here?
Okay, it goes in this package.
back
And I
on
was
your desk.
told never to, yeah, it can go on.
Don't give it
I'll
away.
be- yeah, I'll
I'll fix it.
Okay, thank you.
Guys, we'll pass these
I'll
down.
start
That's
bringing
a sign,
my
I've been trying
adapter.
to buy one of my friends.
We didn't know how many people are here, so we just
Because
made.
you do have
I made
HDMI.
just enough, 7.
Did you?
Oh, is that what you were going through the HDMI adapter? Those never work.
They, no, the
I've had
first
good luck
time
on my machine
I
here.
presented you, like, the whole thing just breaks in the middle of the thing, and it's like, so I'm gonna buy a different design. Have you tried a shorter one? I was thinking of a shorter one.
Well, that's the thing, you have to buy a different one for every computer that you'd ever own, because they're all
No,
different.
well, maybe I'll do that. So, all right, thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks again.
Thanks again, Ken.
Thank you.
Then you wanna give us the topic here so that people at home can follow along?
Okay, we're gonna have last month we had our first solar presentation from a company called Sunrays. Mr. Jackson was here and he was talking about one method of doing it, which is where we would put panels on some of our school roofs. The panels would be owned by the provider, and then we would get a discount on our power rates. This group, NESG, New England Solar Garden.
Yep, we're Renewables Worldwide, New England Solar Gardens, the developer.
Okay, all right.
And they'll talk more about the details of what they do, but basically their plan is to build a very large solar farm somewhere in New Hampshire, Milton maybe, is that the plan?
Yep.
Or they're gonna build it, you guys. Okay. So this is another option for solar and potential savings for us.
So I'll pick up from there while Charlie
Go into
is setting up.
Or displays, rather. Display preferences and then displays.
Yeah.
One sec.
The issue I'm running into is it's like, it's flashing. So,
Do that first.
still flashing even with being disconnected?
Yep. So it was just when it was connected, it was basically trying to connect, but it wasn't actually connecting. Just try this.
There you go. There you go. It's actually it. It's gonna work here. I have to get this. I think it's.
I think it's flashing because it's connected to that. You just have to get on the right one on the screen.
Yep. You're right. We get that.
Oh.
Freaking up.
Two. It's not-
We're gonna be halfway through this already.
No.
Are there any questions?
All right, let's just,
Yeah, try when we can go through that
Okay.
with these guys. That's
Play
okay.
with it,
So I'll give you, before Charlie gets going, just want to do a quick introduction of who we are so you guys can understand why we're here and the difference between what we're presenting compared to the other company that came here for your last board meeting. My name's Chris Angelo. This is Matt Degatti. We're the two owners of Renewables Worldwide. Our history is we've done a lot of solar farm development, especially and specifically in the state of Massachusetts. We've worked on a lot of large entities such as TD Garden. We connected them to a solar farm power plant. They save about $380-something thousand a year guaranteed for the next 20 years. So a lot of entities such as school districts, to go solar, it can cost a lot of money. At the same time, you usually don't have the roof space to be able to cover your whole utility bill. Even if someone comes in here and says, hey, we can put solar on your roof, give you guys a discount for the next 20 years, no cost to you, but most likely you don't have the roof space to cover the amount of power you're using, so you still have utility costs left over, not being covered by solar. So where we come in, the solar farm project we're working on right now is with New England Solar Garden. He's the largest developer in the state of New Hampshire. It's about a 200 megawatt system that he's producing right now, of course, with 30 different farms. You mentioned Milton. We're building about a 25 megawatt project on the landfill in Milton. And what we were looking to do is connect the National School District to half that farm. And I'll let Charlie go into more detail of this, but basically what it is no cost, no equipment to you guys. You still pay your Eversource bill. The only difference is that you're going to be receiving a discount. So I'll let Charlie go into that detail and go into the presentation for you guys.
I'll wait till Dr. Mosley gets back. But I'll start with a little preface. How many of you guys are originally from Nashua? And how many of you guys either grew up here or went to school here? Fair enough.
That didn't work.
Well, let me tell you a little bit of my history with Nashua before we went to Dr. Mosley. I was born here. I was born in Southern New Hampshire Medical Center. I've had family in New Hampshire since the late 1600s. So I'm immensely proud to be a New Hampshireite. I'm very proud to be born in Nashua. I haven't lived here my whole life. I lived here for a while, moved out to Limeboro for a couple of years, and then we kind of jumped around to different states, but there was always this, piece of my heart that belonged to New Hampshire, and specifically this region of New Hampshire. I ended up moving to Hollis when I was in 7th grade, so I went through the Hollis Brookline School District, the middle school and the high school. I graduated in 2010. Now, my mom attended Nashua High School when it was just one, before there were the two. So what is now South, I'm sure most of you know, was originally one school. My mom went there. She graduated through there. My grandmother lives here. She lives off Ashland Street.
You're not making any points here. My kids went there.
I'm just trying to say, I'm proud to be here.
No, I
I'm
understand.
happy that, I'm able to be here. And I'm basically just waiting for Dr. Mosley to get back. But, I want to convey that I'm not coming to you from a point of trying to sell you guys stuff. I'm coming here as a point of pride and to help out a town that is very near and dear to my heart. So, I'm not sure when it's coming back. Maybe I should just get started.
Yeah, why don't you?
Okay, perfect. So, first and foremost, has anyone here ever heard of a solar farm? Does anyone know, what it is? The basic function of it? Okay. So for those of you that don't, it's essentially a big field or a big piece of land that has a bunch of solar panels on it. And page 1 will break it down. A parcel of land, let's go on. A parcel of land is either bought or leased from a private individual or a town. Landfills make great solar farms because they're elevated. They're a brown site, so there's nothing else that's really going to be done with them. and they are sloped so that they can accommodate more solar panels. It's a more efficient place to put it. So when New England Solar Garden goes out and builds their solar farms, they try to look for landfills first. Once we find that land, we place a massive solar array on that land. We look at it, we assess how many solar panels we can fit on it, what its capacity is, and then we will go out and get the permitting and build from there. All the energy produced by these farms is sent directly to the grid. So it basically acts like a new power plant, more or less. What it does is it provides Eversource, in this case, with a cleaner, cheaper source of renewable energy that they can then disperse to the town as they see fit. All this energy goes into a massive pool. So it doesn't go to one specific business. It's not going to go to Nashua South. It's not going to go to Bicentennial directly. It's going to be dispersed within the community. Now, on the second page, you can see basically what they look like. And this is just a basic representation of a solar farm. They all look different. Some of them look like Mickey Mouse. It's not the most efficient way to have a solar farm, but sometimes the developers will have fun with it. But this is essentially what most of the solar farms look like. Now, how do they work? Or how does this whole program work, the community solar model? Currently, all of the meters that you guys have for all of your schools are tied to conventional power plants. So it's either tied to a nuclear, natural gas, maybe a coal, maybe a wood-burning power plant, one of them. Now, what happens with the community solar model is your meter number is then tied to the solar farm. So it's essentially tied to a solar power plant. And that's how the whole program works. Now, when we have entities on it, the energy, we can actually transmit the energy. Before we have entities on it, we can't transmit the energy. So that's why we have to go out and find this offtake. The nice thing about this is your service does not change. Right? There's no interruptions to your service. There's no changes. You don't have to worry about inconsistencies with solar. You don't even have to worry about inconsistencies with solar now on the roof, but it's this common question we get. Right? Is my service going to change? Am I going to get interruptions? Eversource remains your electricity company. They're not going anywhere. They're still going to be supplying the power that you're going to be getting. And if the laws change, there's two models to this, right? If your laws change, currently you cannot have a third-party supplier and be on the rebate program that we offer. It's a 1 cent per kilowatt hour rebate. So every kilowatt hour that the school district uses, you actually get a check sent directly to the plant operations office. It's 1 cent. So we'll go over those numbers a little bit later and kind of look at what that rebate looks like. If the laws change, you continue to choose your supplier on 6-month to 3-year intervals. So you can actually shop the market and continue on with how you have been doing it. You just get an additional savings on top of that. Why are they beneficial though? Right? They allow you to become members without any investments or installations. There's a huge demand for solar, but there isn't always the feasibility to go solar for institutions. It either doesn't make sense financially for the institution because the incentives aren't good enough, or the actual physical space that they own is not conducive to solar, right? And that's a big hurdle to overcome for a lot of businesses. We see this a lot in smaller businesses that are in strip malls and things like that, but even schools, you don't necessarily have the roof space or the viable roof space to cover your entire bills. And sometimes the taking on of a loan or something like that is not something the school wants to take on. So this is a nice option for school districts and large entities because you can actually cover the entire school district, right? There's no cap on size that we can do. All the power produced offsets the power you use and makes you a green business. And that's really important. Not technically a business, but it makes you a green entity, right? So you can actually say the entire Nashua school district is solar powered. And that has a lot of very positive implications in the community just on its own merit. It also provides a substantial reduction in your electricity costs, either through the rebate model or the power purchase agreement model, which I'll cover in a second. The other thing that I think is going to be really, really important to you, and the thing that you spend so much of your time doing, is budgeting, right? Talking about budgets, figuring out how you're going to manage the budget, how you're going to predict the budget. This offers you more financial stability because you can look to a savings that is all but guaranteed and say, okay, we know that we can include this in our budget and this is a safe amount of money. right? And that can help you handle, and you can allocate that money elsewhere, whether it's legacy costs, whether it's the rising cost of transportation, whether it's, you know, that non-existent 30% bump in electricity that's isn't actually true, but it allows you to do more. It allows you to invest more in your schools and more in your community. And it also solves the problem of affordability and feasibility of rooftop solar for entities that maybe are not a right fit for it, right? And there's also, I kind of read through the transcript of the solar meeting. It doesn't sound like, you know, at the beginning, at the onset of it, they'd be able to cover all of the schools, right? And it sounds like you guys want all of the schools covered. Why leave some of your schools uncovered? This program allows you to do that and makes that feasible. So how do the savings work? So the first thing that I laid out for you guys was the rebate check. So we look at your past year's usage for each school, and we've already gone through with Mr. Smith and done that. Figure out how many kilowatt hours you guys use and what your rebate would actually be. And it's just based on your usage. It's a very simple calculation. You use 1 million kilowatt hours, you get $10,000. Simple as that. Or the other model is through a power purchase agreement. And that's an initial rate that's set, and then a yearly escalator that's also set. The escalator is a much smaller rise than historical electricity price rises. So in state of New Hampshire, we've seen, you know, Eversource go up at about 7.4% over the last 12 years, which is a significant rise each year, and can you know, attribute to higher, you know, budget costs and budget shortfalls, because it's kind of hard to predict year to year. You guys have a third-party supplier, so you at least know the supply portion of your bill. You can somewhat predict that. Now, the reason why this is even better than that, this goes a step further, is you can actually plan out 20 years in advance what your cost for electricity is going to be based on historical usage, and tweak it as you need to, right? You may go LED in some schools and it might be more efficient. You might be using more efficient heating systems, so your prices will go down. But you at least know what your rate is going to be for electricity, so it gives you guys a little bit more of a hands-off approach when you're talking about the electricity budget, which is great. Last year, the school district...
Can I interrupt?
Hmm?
How do so you're giving me a 1 cent rebate for every one that I use. That doesn't change my rate.
Correct.
You reduce my rate by 1 cent, but if my rate goes up 10%, I'm still only saving 1 cent.
Right. But the reason why that's beneficial and the reason why it's still a savings is you know that you're going to be getting that 1 cent, and it's a rebate check.
It's different than my rate doesn't change.
Right. The PPA model is the one that affects your rate.
Okay.
If you want to look at it like this, right now, Eversource last 12 years has gone up an average of 7% per year. If you take the third-party suppliers, they've gone up an average about 4.5 to 5 cents per year, percent per year. So they're kind of tailing right behind Eversource, but always giving you a little bit of discount. What the solar is doing is guaranteeing you the same amount of savings every year until the year 2040 with the 1 cent per kilowatt hour discount. So you guys are producing about 13,900,000 kilowatt hours a year, so it would literally be $139,000 a year that you would receive guaranteed to the year 2040. Now, on the other flip side, because we are a solar farm, we're able to kind of switch over and do another model as well, which Charlie's about to get into, to where we can go, okay, we're not a commodity. We don't have to go with what's going out there with the, like right now you get the big hurricane. That will affect utility costs in certain states. You know, because things with supply, what they do is they buy power in bulk and they sell it to you, say at a 1 cent higher than what they buy it, and they lock you in for 2 or 3 years. And then you pay that discounted rate. And then you have to go out again in 2 or 3 years, go see what the market is doing, and then do that all again. Well, that market, if you even look at today, right now, if they, the contract you signed for last year was at 6.99, today it's about 8.6, and then they're predicting a year from now to be around 10 cents. So you can see every year, even the suppliers are starting to slowly creep up with that. Well, because solar is not a commodity, we know what they are. When we build a farm, we know what the state is providing for us, we know what the incentives are. So we're able to do a whole layout for 20 years for you guys to show you exactly what your savings would be over the course of the next 20 years. And we're also able to provide a much more competitive rate and keep it down below the market for suppliers and for Eversource as well. So if you look at it this way, here's Eversource, here's suppliers, and then here we are underneath. We'll always be tailing behind everyone as far as how much we can offer for you guys. So we'll always be a little bit less. So I'll let Charlie get into more of that detail.
Just for my clarification, so we would be asked to select one model, either the penny a kilowatt or.
Yep, you guys.
Would be the third-party provider.
Yeah, we basically would become your third-party supplier at a much at a better rate than you would get on the market with any third-party supplier out there.
If the laws change.
Yeah, and I'll touch on that.
If the
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
let him go into all that detail.
So, if you guys decide to go with a rebate model and the laws change, you get to keep your third-party supplier, you get to continue to choose them. You will always get that 1 cent per kilowatt hour rebate though. So you can plan on those funds basically to allocate where you need to for your budget. So it's a predictable amount of money. It's basically like a paycheck for the school, right? It would be $135,510 a year, roughly. So that would be sent directly to the school district to do with what they please. Now, what that looks like through 2040 is right under $3 million. And that's essentially guaranteed, unless your usage drops dramatically. But if your usage drops, you're also cutting electricity costs, so you're still, saving money. It's not like you're getting shortchanged. You're still saving money, but you're still getting the rebate based on your usage. The nice thing about that model, and the nice thing about all these models, is there's no actual investment from the school. So you don't actually have to give us anything to go out and, fill the farms, or you don't have to charge any maintenance fees, anything like that. Now, if the laws don't change, what we do is we would, once the solar farms are ready, in about 2 years, we would buy you out of your current contract, right? And we figured out those costs with Mr. Smith, and we've gone over that whole thing. We've built it into our business model, so we're prepared to incur those costs, whatever they may be. And then you immediately join the solar farms and continue with that 6.9 cents per kilowatt hour rate for the remainder of your term. The last thing that we'd want to do is have you guys lose any money. So let's say you canceled with 13 months left on your original, or we bought you out with 13 months on your original Garrett contract. For the rest of those 13 months, through our supply, you would be paying 6.9 cents per kilowatt hour, right? So you wouldn't have any change, you wouldn't have any rise. Now, after that, at the end of the 36-month term, you start at 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour with a yearly escalator of 2%. Now, the current best rate that I'm able to find through Agera for large industrial is about 8.6 cents currently. So that 8.5 cents brings you below what the best is today. In 2 years, the best is most likely going to be up near 10 cents. And obviously, the larger the institution, the better deal you can get. But we know that we're predicting that it's not going to be anywhere near that 8.5 cent figure, right? And then your yearly escalator is 2%, which is 60% lower than the historical rise we've seen from third-party suppliers. It's almost 75% lower than what we've seen from Eversource. So the value of this program compounds each year. So I see.
Real quick, just to give you guys an idea of how we figure out our numbers of like what's going to happen in 2 years. We're just going by history, just like you guys are when you're looking at all what you guys have been doing the last 2 or 3 years with your school. We're going by history of what the market has done. So we're just taking the percentages that's gone up on average every year and then predicting, okay, that's what's done for the last 10, 12 years. So this is most likely the highest predictability of what will happen in a year or two. Do you have a question? Go ahead. Shoot.
Why would we agree to 2%? 2% each year.
2% escalator?
Yes.
Okay.
Why not just one?
So the reason why is
I'm sorry, maybe I stopped and paused. I guess my question is, do we have to go up 2, or can it be like 2 and then another 3 years, 1 and 1, 1? Why does it have to be 2?
So the reason why it has to be 2 is when we're looking at the feasibility of solar farms or financiers, they are risk averse as well. So they want to make sure that the solar farms are profitable. If the solar farms are not profitable, they have to shut down. And then there's no benefit for anyone.
But if you have a 20-year contract, you're not in it for the short game, you're in it for the long game.
Exactly.
So you're still making money even at 1.
Well, let's look at the chart, because it is not as 2% sounds significant on the surface. It sounds like a lot of money, but if you actually look at how much it rises in 20 years, it's not as big as it sounds.
Right. I understand.
I see. What he's trying to get at is he's feeling as though that at a 1% escalator for 20 years that the solar farm would still be profitable.
Yes.
Is what you're feeling as though. So I'll give you an idea. If you were to build a 13.9 megawatt farm for solar, you're looking at about $50 million project. Over 20 years, if we did a 1% escalator, it actually would barely break. We wouldn't even break even. So what we have to do is we have to do a 2% escalator to ensure that the people who are financing the farms at least get a minimum return on investment on their end. Let's face it, when you're building farms and even if you're offering things for free, even the third-party suppliers that come in for free, they're still in the business of making money. Obviously, there's someone making money somewhere, obviously, whatever you're doing. So when you're offering some sort of escalation, we're actually able to, if you want to go with like, so you're talking about 2%. If you look at third-party supplier, on average, they're at 4 or 5% per year. But the thing is, you go with what they have every 2 or 3 years, and then you're, all right, what's the market showing? And then you do it again 2 or 3 years later. What's the market showing? Well, every 2 or 3 years, you've gone up 4%, 4%, 4%, to where when we're able to come in and say, okay, we're going to offer you in 10 years something that's lower than what is today. So in 2 years, well, they'll probably be around 10, 10.5, or 8.5, and then we're at 2% escalator where they're still at that 4. So the margin of us going up is going to be like this slow, while theirs is faster. So over 20 years, we'll be here while they're way up here. So
Well,
that's
I'm sorry, but this past, the upcoming 3-year lock-in that we have
Yep.
is less than our last 3-year lock-in. So it's just kind of a little counter of the trend, saying they escalate 4% every year, but you actually saw a pretty good reduction in our rate. I mean, maybe we just hit it right.
Yeah, these are longer term averages that you're looking at as well. You know, they weren't just taking a 3-year snapshot in terms of the third-party supply.
Yep.
I guess my reaction is, and maybe you could talk more, we're not talking about a couple of buildings. Your analysis is for all of our buildings.
Yep.
So you're not just getting just the high school, you're getting 2 high schools. So this is a significant investment for your company and for your investors. So it's not, I look at it as more as a, not one building, but you're getting the city of Nashua school system. So that 2% is a lot, even that 1% is a lot. Just kind of sharing that perspective.
Can I go back to something you said earlier that stuck with me, and I want to make sure. Did you say that you can't begin to produce until you have a buyer for the electricity? You can't just, can you build a farm and just start putting stuff out on the grid? No. So you have to have somebody lined up to take the
Exactly.
Okay. And we're talking a 20-year contract. And so if something happens and we just say after 10 years we want out, there must be some penalty to get out.
Yeah, so it is based on the amount of savings you had the previous year. So essentially, you look at what you had for savings a year. We talk with you and figure out why you want to leave. If it's a cost-related thing, if it's a service-related thing, whatever it is, and then we work with you to get out of it. So we do have the option to, if you wanted to leave and the laws were different, get you on that 1 cent rebate program, and that would go on top of a supplier. So if you did want out, we'd still want you to be on our solar farm, so we would offer you that 1 cent per kilowatt hour rebate. At that point, the laws would 99% be different, so that way you could still care about the costs, but also continue with the solar farm power. So.
But the maximum penalty would be whatever rebate, whatever savings there was in the previous year, is that what you said?
Correct.
Okay. Which,
It's $135,000.
well, that's the 1%.
If that was the number.
Well, that's the 1% rebate.
I see.
But I think George was asking if we're on the 20-year.
Yeah, we've moved
Plan.
beyond our current 3-year contract, and we've transitioned, you're the third-party provider.
Just to give you guys an example, your JERA contract is $400,000 to cancel before it even starts.
Say again,
Say
please.
Your JERA contract for 3 years
I
is a
don't know
floor.
I don't know what you're saying.
That's your
That's the
third-party
contract
supplier.
we
Is
have
the
now.
name.
Agera Energy, who you signed on for your third-party supplier, before you even start, is a $400,000 cancellation fee. So you're looking at big fees when you're locking people into power. The solar farm power, if you look at, and he'll go over the numbers, is most of the time throughout there, that fee is a lot less than that. Just to give you guys an idea of what you're already locked into.
So if we were to, the laws change, then we can use it as a third-party supplier. That 400,000 is now going to be down to, I don't know, 250 or something like that after a year.
Yeah.
You're taking that, you're paying that 250.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And keeping
We
us
were,
on
we were absorbed
0.69.
based on the hit that you guys would have had to take instead. He's talked about the 1 cent, the laws changing. That is in legislation right now. You could actually look it up if you wanted to. Andrew Keller, who developed these solar farms, is right on the board. there's most likely within 90 to 120 days, the law is going to change. And you could actually have a third-party supplier and be connected to a solar farm. The only thing what we are doing right now, you guys mentioned about building a solar farm and then having the offtake. Would we build it before or after we found offtake? What we are doing right now, we have 200 megawatts that we are going to put into construction, and we're finding the offtake previously. So if it wasn't Nashua School District, what we have is other clients as well that we're speaking with that we're lining up to fill up the whole 200 megawatts. And once it's filled, it's filled. So once that whole project is done, it's just like you can have a big coal-based solar farm, or you could have, a coal-based power plant or a nuclear power plant. Those things feed towns or half the states. Solar farms are only so big, so you allocate certain panels to certain areas. To give you an example, 13.9 megawatt farm, you're looking at almost, let's see if I can, about 60 acres worth of land to build that farm to cover a school district. So that's a lot of land that you're utilizing to build solar for you guys. You know, when Matt and I, we connected the TD Garden to a solar farm, that was like a 30 megawatt project. Well, you take 30 times 5, it's 150 acres to cover TD Garden. So that's what you guys are getting locked into, is you're getting locked into part of that solar farm, but we only have so much space. So what we are doing right now is, yes, we are what you want to call selling, finding the offtake. So if you guys want to be part of the solar program when the farms turn on, that you can be part of that. Now the rules, if you guys don't like the power that he's about to share with you, you guys do have the option securing that spot on the 1 cent per kilowatt hour discount, saying that the rules will most likely change and you could double dip, keep your supplier, and at the same time receive a rebate check every year, guaranteed for 23 years. So you guys don't have to do the power purchase agreement. You guys could like that and say, great, we're going to do that. And you mentioned you don't like the 1% escalator, you think that's a little bit high, or 2%. We said even 1% would be pretty high. But to have that 1 cent per kilowatt hour discount for the next 23 years, guaranteed, while still being able to be on the market for any supplier, well, now at that point, if you can double dip, now it becomes what you would call almost a no-brainer, because it's guaranteed money to the school district, $100-something thousand every year that you guys could put back into what you guys were talking about today with other things.
But that's not how it would work if we signed up today.
Was that?
The law doesn't work that way. if
You
sign
would,
up today.
what you would be doing today is securing that spot, because these farms, for your size, it wouldn't turn on for 2 years. So what we would do is we would wait and see, once the legislation meets later this year, that the law is going to change for 2018. Now, if the law changes, you guys are great, you're secure, you have your spot, you don't have to worry about it. If the laws don't change, then we have to come back and have a different conversation with you guys. But as far as securing that spot and the 1 cent per kilowatt hour discount, there is no fee attached to that one.
You're asking us, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
So you're asking us to wait for a law to change to double dip, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there's a little bit of, if the law doesn't change, you said we're gonna have a different conversation.
If the law doesn't change, now what you have is, okay, you can't double dip anymore. So now what we'd have to do, we'd have to revisit if you guys wanted to do the power purchase agreement model that Charlie is about to show you. If the laws do change, then we don't even have to approach that model. But the thing is, what we're trying to do is just secure your spot to give you that option. If you don't secure your spot, then you don't even have the option. If you secure the spot, at least on the 1 cent per kilowatt hour discount side of things, there is no fee. It's basically a free spot for you to say, okay, let's see what happens. So then in 6 months, we come back and say, hey, the laws changed, you guys are great. You can get this starting in, say, beginning of 2019. If the laws don't change, then we have to have a different discussion.
So when you talk laws, are these federal laws, or are they state laws?
State laws.
State
New Hampshire.
legislature.
Yeah.
So in Massachusetts, you can have
You can double
a
dip.
solar farm and a third party.
Mhm.
Can't do that
And that's what
here.
you expect to happen in New Hampshire in
Very
what,
much so.
the next legislative year?
Like for 2018. Yeah, we wouldn't be sitting here.
So by June of next year, you would know.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's the end of the legislative year. It's supposed to-
Yeah, yeah.
It's supposed to be anyway.
Exactly.
So I had a conversation with Andrew Keller, the developer for New England Solar Garden, today about it, because I ask him frequently, because I want to know, what the laws are looking like. Obviously, it's a much easier conversation to have with people if we can say, look, you get a 1 cent rebate on top of your supplier. That's a no-brainer, because there's no cost to it. And we want to be able to be confident in what we're telling people. He said today that he is in contacts with some of the top business people and some of the top legislators in the state of New Hampshire. They want to get this passed because they want to have the solar program grow in New Hampshire. So they are fighting, they have the right people discussing it. There's currently an audit going on with the governor, with the solar industry during the month of September. So they're looking at everything. They're looking at what the incentive program is. They're looking at how the laws work, if it's feasible for solar companies to come into the state of New Hampshire. And they are all committed to finding a solution. Now, what's most likely going to happen, and what is happening right now, is currently, if you sign up for the rebate program, you have to be an Eversource's supply rate. Eversource pays the solar farm, 11.6 cents or whatever their supply rate is. What's most likely going to happen is that the laws change, Eversource only pays what the supplier rate is, which is a perfectly feasible thing for Eversource, and it's sort of a happy medium because they don't have to pay as much to the solar farm developers. They get to keep their customers. They get to, support solar and say they're supporting solar, but they're not, losing money. So that is.
Or spending money.
Or spending.
Spending money.
Yeah, they like to be on the
Making
attack as much as possible.
One thing I want Charlie to show though, he's gonna show you the difference to talk about with your escalator of if you guys were to stay with the market with your supplier and went with the PPA, and also stay on the market with Eversource and went to solar farm. So we were gonna show you the two differences so you can understand the supplier
I just
side.
want to stick with the legislation for a second.
Yeah,
sure.
So do you know the name of the committee in New Hampshire?
I personally don't know the name. I'm not in contact with those people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you get that to me, do you happen to know?
I don't know who to say.
Science and technology you talking about?
There's a lot of different.
Oh, really?
spots.
Science and
I
technology?
don't know, I wonder. That's David, right?
Yep.
We David.
Yeah, so we have a board member who is on the Science and Technology Committee. Some of us.
I wonder
in
if
the
that
room-
would be the guy.
It could be.
Yeah, I don't know the names of the
Some of us
people.
in the room know state legislators and have helped with legislation in the past.
Do you know the building?
Andrew would know, I'm sure.
Andrew Keller
I
would
can
be
get
able
all
to.
that information. Because Andrew Keller, the developer, is actually in on those meetings where the legislature is hearing all that. And he's presenting and he's active in those meetings.
So this is the first time it's going through, or is this the second
Oh
time?
no, this is many.
Through our
New Hampshire
legislation?
Eversource has a really tight grasp on everything, and they're really holding on to it in New Hampshire. These laws are all in Connecticut, Rhode Island.
But
So
she's
you-
asking,
so you
has
have-
it been through one round in the New Hampshire?
The first round was this: they wanted to be able to pass what we call virtual net metering, which is able to take an entity over here, say 200 or 300 miles away, and connect it to an entity over here. So they passed that, but what they said is, we'll only do it if you can only connect to the people who are still on Eversource's supply rate. And they've said, just to get in, okay. Now, the second go-around, they're going into, okay, we don't want that anymore. We want to be like Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, Vermont. We don't want to be the only state that can't double dip. It's not fair to customers. And it's really much harder for developers, to be honest with you. So they're going and saying, why don't we be able to cover everything? And it's being pushed so hard right now that the odds are, from our understanding, is that it's going to change. I don't know the name of the board members though. I could find
Oh,
out
no,
for you
that's
guys
fine.
if you guys need to know that.
No, I'm just curious, what about the Public Utilities Commission versus the state legislature? Those are two different political beasts in the state of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So is this the legislature or is this the Public Utilities Commission?
It's primarily the legislature. The Public Utilities Commission has input on it, and they are, I'm actually not sure which side they're on as much, but the legislature kind of overrides the Public Utilities Commission. They have input, the Public Utilities Commission does, but just like what happened he was explaining to me, it was Massachusetts. It might have been Massachusetts or Rhode Island, right? They basically, the public utilities kind of was siding in favor of the utility companies, which is kind of their job. The state legislature said, no, we don't want to do that. We want to make it conducive for solar in our state. So they just overrode them, wrote the law, and the Public Utilities Commission had no choice. So the legislature comes above them, but the Public Utilities Commission obviously, works with them or works against them, depending on the state.
I see that most people think the Public Utilities Commission actually ought to be protecting the public.
Yeah,
interest.
Not the utilities?
yeah. It's interesting how that works. Doesn't always
Not
work.
in New Hampshire. In Massachusetts though, you have a Green Communities Act, which forces utility companies to go 30% renewable energy by 2025. So they're forcing all these things to happen. And that's why you see right now, you guys, I don't know if you knew this, Massachusetts right across the border is #1 state in the whole country for solar and renewable energy, because of all the state incentives that they have because of these acts.
Okay, so let's get to the
Yep.
table.
Go ahead.
Alright, so the first table I did was based on the 7.5% historical rise. And this is sort of a worst case scenario type thing. This is not the likely outcome, but I wanted to show what, could be possible. These third-party supplier rates, if Eversource continues to rise at 7.4, 7.5%, could say, you know what, as long as we stay lower, we can still rise at 7.5%. Why not? They're still getting a discount on electricity, we can still entice customers, and we're rising with Eversource. So we can make more money out of it, things like that. So that was what this was. So the breakdown of that is a lot more extreme than the breakdown of the historical rate. So you have the PPA model on the second column, you have the utility supply rate, or the projected utility supply rate on the third column. And if you look down, let's start at year 10, for the PPA model, you're at 10.2 cents per kilowatt hour, right? Which is what it's projected to be in like 2 or 3 years. Now, if you look over on this extreme model, you're at 16.4 cents per kilowatt hour for supply, right? That would be sort of a worst case scenario for most businesses, because all of a sudden you're looking at an astronomical rise over a very short amount of time, right? And it's kind of hard to predict that. So if that were to happen and it wasn't built into budgets, it wasn't built into models, that would be something that would be extremely detrimental to large and small entities, Like the school district could say, okay, opportunity was presented to us, 5 or 10 years ago to get this rate that was predictable, would rise at slowly, rates that were historically slower. Now we're looking at a supply rate, and this is with a third-party supplier. I started at 8.6 cents because that's the best rate that I can find right now through Regera, who tends to be the lowest.
But why, knowing that we have a 6.9, rate, right?
Yeah.
We're already in that, we've switched over.
Starts November.
Oh, we're about to, a
Yeah.
couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you start your model knowing that we, at our base price?
Because the PPA model actually at 8.5 cents kicks in after the 6.9 cents is over.
So this is
This
3
is 3
years
years
from
out.
now?
Exactly, so I'm giving you best case scenario
Okay, no,
utility
no.
supplier.
just-
Yeah.
okay.
It's
So it's
a
not,
good question.
so it's year one after we leave the
Yes.
current supply?
Yes, so that was a
So
good
it's
thing to
not year
clarify.
one now, it's year
Yeah,
one.
correct.
Gera, whatever they are, when we're done with that contract.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's go to the next chart because that's a little bit more realistic. That's a little bit more, it's closer to what we've seen historically. So again, the PPA model starts at 8.5 cents, and this is after the Agera contract is over. Utility supply rate, based on what I've seen right now, is 8.6 cents. So with a 2% rise, or a 2% rise, you can still see, throughout the years, you're rising at a very, very slow rate. 10 years down the road, you're at 10.2 cents. That's only 2 cents higher than what you're paying now, right? That's not a 20 or 30 cent jump. It's not this massive jump that it kind of sounds like when you hear 2%, it does sound high. But when you look at the numbers, it's not as scary as it sounds. It's actually quite comforting to see this, right? Because if you look over in the other column, the supply rate could theoretically be 13 cents there. That could be the lowest you could find. That's with a 5% escalation per year, right? And that's if the third-party suppliers don't get greedy and decide to charge, follow Eversource's historical rates. Now, if you look down in year 20, you're at 12.4 cents. Eversource's current supply rate is 11.6. You're only 0.8 cents higher in 20 years than Eversource's supply rate is right now. So that's an astronomical difference, right? Over 20 years, you're rising, if you compare it to Eversource, like 0.25%. It's not that much at all. The utility supply rate could be 21 cents there for a third-party supplier, right? It could not go up that much. It could level out in a couple of years. It could stay around 11, 12 cents. But even that, it would take you 20 years to get to that 12-cent figure. So it's not like you're saying, okay, 2%, that's a lot. We're going to be at 12.4 cents in 20 years. You know that it is, or you can be, I'd say 95% assured that it's going to be lower than any supply rate you'd be able to get, barring any
Can I
unforeseen.
ask either Mr. Donovan
Mhm.
or Mr. Smith a question? So have you seen 10 cent, I know we're industrial customer, we're not a residential customer that is paying 10 plus, but have you ever seen 10 cents on commercial type accounts.
Well, before we started locking in,
Yeah.
we were at the Eversource rate. Right now, that's.
Well, we've been locking in for about 8 years now, right?
Yeah, yeah. But right now, the Eversource rate is 12.5 cents.
So you've been in that range, or, well, you've been.
If we didn't
the
do
aver-
this,
you've
if we
been
didn't
the-
do the supplier, we
We would have been 12,
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
So if you weren't looking out defensively for the district, we would be there now.
Sure.
If you hadn't locked in those several, I guess it's
Yeah.
several contracts over the years. So you're dealing with, the good news is you're dealing with people who aren't all over this. So please, okay, thank you. I just want to know if we would be there if you guys weren't on top of things. It's
Right.
really, thank you.
It's not inconceivable that they would be there again, and that third-party supply rates would be there again. Right, you're talking a long time down the road, you're talking 10 years down the road. You know, if you guys look to budget history to kind of plan your future, we have to look to electricity history to plan ours and to plan yours. So the best we can do is project, and we try to make it as accurate as possible and as reliable as possible. I'm not providing you with figures that are, ridiculous or that haven't happened in the past. These are based on facts. These are based on real things. Will it get to 21 cents in 20 years? Who knows? It could. It could also, like I said, level out. But it's most likely not going to level out around, 8, 9, 10 cents for the supply rate. It's probably going to be up at 11 or 12 if it levels out. So what you're doing is throughout those years, let's say you're at 11 cents. The best you can find is 11 cents in year 10. With the PPA model, you're still a cent less than that. So you're still assuring yourself the chance to get savings, right? The very, very high probability that you're going to get savings. The other thing is it gives you more budget stability, which I know is something that's important to you. So you can actually look to this and say, all right, we used this much electricity last year. We're most likely going to be using this much electricity next year. Let's figure out what our electricity costs are going to be. Budget a little higher just in case usage goes up. But in that way, it's much more of a, set it and forget it. You don't have to think about third-party supplier contracts every 2, 3 years, whatever it
It's
is.
providing a lot more predictability than going with the market of suppliers. Suppliers, like you said, at one, you said the previous week was a little lower. Well, then the opposite could happen in 3 years. It could be through the roof. You don't know. It's just providing a predictable 20-year future for the school district. You guys are going over a bunch of numbers. I think predictability, if you guys have predictability in a lot of your other areas, it make your lives a lot easier when you're doing these meetings, obviously, correct? So if you're able to predict your
Do
savings
you
per
offer
year.
any special ed cost reductions?
Do I?
Transportation.
Absolutely. 100%.
Transportation,
Anything you want, I can do.
Yeah.
But it provides that predictability for 20 years for the school district to be able to say, okay, this year this is how much we're saving in utility costs. This is also what we're going to be saving over the course of the next 10 years, so we can plan for that. This is the type of model that most school districts in towns, especially in the state of Massachusetts, do. Instead of the other way around, the other model we showed you. They do this because they like the predictability of being able to know what they're spending every year without the hassle of it switching up constantly on them, or who knows what's going to happen, type deal. They want to know, okay, this is what we're spending, so they can budget accordingly.
so, we are a subcommittee of a double the size committee.
Okay.
We are today, okay? No decisions here, it takes 9 votes, just to be frank and clear what that is.
So might
So,
count. I'm just kidding.
only if you get elected by the people in Nashua, but then you
I went to
count
Bishop
a lot.
Curtin. I got in.
So I guess where I'm headed with that is, what action are you looking from us in the short term? I mean, we obviously have to deliberate and do what we do, but being mindful of, you're in business, you're here to make money, you're here to provide a service.
Mhm.
We buy if we want the service, right? So, but urgency is, we are an aircraft carrier. And combined,
Well, we're not.
wait, no.
It's not gonna take that long.
Okay. Well, I'm just
He's like,
saying,
come on
Their
now.
We're not-
answer,
I don't
their
think
answer,
we-
Howard, is gonna be, we should sign up tonight, otherwise it'll all be gone.
Well,
If
that's
they answer
sort of-
anything differently, they're
No,
they're
well,
not
that's-
very good salesmen.
Well, that's where he's going, and I'm trying to say, we're an aircraft carrier, we couldn't nimbly move that fast even if we wanted to.
You guys have a board above this one that needs to go to?
Yeah.
You do? So if you're asking me what would I want to do today, I would love the opportunity to be able to present to that board that's above you and see what they have to say after
But
hearing.
they're the
What you
same
really want-
people.
Same-
Yeah, we're
oh,
the
it's
same- we're a
people?
subset.
They're just 4 of,
5. We're 4 of 9.
Oh, there's
just
only,
5 more
okay.
people. These are
Okay.
4 of the
Actually,
board.
there's only 3 of 9. Oh, sorry, George is here. 4 of 9.
Okay, cool.
Right.
So-
And
So
the bottom
actually,
line is
what
we're not
you
gonna
want
take any
from
action
us-
tonight.
What you really want from us, which I don't think you're gonna get, because the chair just
Yeah, we're not,
suggested
well, we're
it's-
not, I mean,
we can't vote.
this is the
Information.
second
It's a
proposal.
presentation.
Yeah,
We
The
have-
city
we
has
have a
asked
third
us-
one, right,
The city has
coming?
asked us to have the
Yeah.
people that are
Yeah.
doing their solar planning to come in and talk to us. We'll do that next month. I'm pretty sure, no offense, there'll be another solar farm if these guys fill up their solar farm. That would be my view. I'm not saying we don't want to be on yours, but,
Or the next one they build.
right. Mr. Smith, you had a comment.
Yeah, let me just test my listening skills here and make sure we all understand. So the way the laws are right now, you can either be on a solar farm or have a third-party supplier. If we decided the next Board of Ed meeting to go with you, we'd be doing so, and we get the $139,000 a year, give or take. And you would pay off Agera, ensure we don't incur any penalty.
If we do pay off a Gary, you'd be going on the power purchase agreement. Otherwise, you would be exposed to much higher rates.
Right, but our rate would not change until the end of that contract, which is 3 years from November. So
Exactly.
you're still at 0.69. So when and if the law does change, then we can do both.
Yep.
You can choose your supplier and you can have the.
We could choose to go with you at the next Board of Ed meeting and then decide, you know what, we're not gonna do the PPA, we're gonna continue on with Agera, and then at the end of that 3 years, we're gonna do it again. We take a risk doing that, but,
Yep.
so that's all correct, right? Okay.
Yep.
This does not, so one thing you didn't discuss, which we discussed, was this does not preclude you from adding solar panels on your
Nope.
roof of your buildings. What that does is it purely just reduces how much you've consumed through the utility system. And, but your 139 would then go down according to amount, whichever
Yeah.
percentage you save.
Like-
So we've talked to the lease type arrangement, which was last month. Next month, we may talk to the, you own your solar field, or you own, it's on your roof, another approach. This arrangement doesn't preclude any of that.
A lot of times people stack Tingsboro Hockey Rink,
I was thinking that.
Skate 3,
Yeah.
which is down not too far from here. I've connected him to 2 solar farms, and he has a 600 kilowatt system on his roof. He didn't have enough roof space to cover his whole hockey rink. He's producing 2 megawatts of power. He's only covering 1/3 of that. So I came to him and said, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cover the rest of you with 2 solar farm projects that I'm working on right now. And we connected him and got him his discount that way, so he's getting like triple solar. To your argument about development in the state of New Hampshire, we see what's going on for the next 2 or 3 years, especially him and I, because we're connected with all the top developers in the whole country. Right now, that 200 megawatt project is the only one in plans for the state of New Hampshire, of course, the next 2 to 3 years. So as far as beyond that, I don't know. Obviously, like I said, I don't know what the rules and
And this
laws.
talks of moratorium on further development,
Yeah,
so.
exactly. But what this does is this secures your spot on the current solar farm and giving you an opportunity to get that double dip that you either would want to take that way or do the power purchase agreement and have a predictable 20 years for your school district. So it gives you an opportunity to go either way.
I don't know whether you'll answer this now, but what % of your 200 megawatts is already assigned?
About, what are we like, at 35? We're about 35% right now, and that's 3 weeks of talking to people. We filled up 35% of the farm, or the project. Sorry, it's about 30 farms. Yeah, so we go fast when it comes to these things.
And what'd you say are,
You guys would be 13, about, actually, no.
11.6.
11.6 megawatts, so 11.6 of 200. So about 5%. Yeah.
okay. Mr. Franklin?
I think, Sean, did you have something else you were following?
Just, I'll say this and throw myself in the mercy of court. On behalf of the school district, I initialed the forms, but told them this has to go to our Board of Ed. So I've kind of sort of put us in a place where we can move forward, but they understand the full board has to approve it.
Yep.
And we would never submit anything.
We haven't
you know.
submitted, there's nothing submitted on your behalf.
Yeah, so just to be clear, he can't pay for anything. Sign for anything.
I was gonna do it all for him.
Other than the initial.
Yeah, we're gonna get, actually what he was trying to do is get the rebate check made out to him.
Yeah, yeah.
So when it turns on, you guys are like, why is he driving up his brand new
We're on
Porsche?
TV,
What's
so
going on?
we don't like to make jokes like that.
Probably
so.
needs a new truck for us to drive around the district first.
Mr. Franklin.
Just a question of curiosity, I was looking at your contract here, this force majeure. Is, if something was to happen, your solar farm is destroyed by
Kim
Natural
Jong-un.
Set.
some weather event,
Yeah.
whatever. Does the PUC
Okay.
require Eversource to step in and continue to provide electricity?
Yeah, so what would happen is you would still continue receiving electricity, it's just your rates would go back to the normal
Okay.
Eversource rates.
And
Yeah,
you're never receiving direct solar power energy.
No, I understand.
So.
yeah,
Yeah.
you just, yeah,
It's virtual.
it's virtual.
Well, let's go back to that again. Let's say 2 years after you start the farm, this happens. What happens again?
You just go back to, now, also your agreement is null and void, there's no
Yeah.
fee if that happens.
You don't.
Yeah, if the
You
the
don't pay
thing
a
like,
penalty to us. But
no,
we
no,
pay
no,
a
no.
penalty to
So you guys just go back to Eversource at that point.
Or onto the
Or
market.
choose.
Or onto
Yeah.
a supplier, or whatever you wanna do at that point in time. Yep, you guys aren't tied into that and some natural disaster destroys the whole farm, that's not your fault or our fault, it's
Yeah.
Mother Nature. You know, there's assurance on these farms as well that help the developers recuperate that loss if something like that happens, but I gotta tell you, those farms can stand up to 150-mile-an-hour winds, so
They
pretty
said
sturdy.
about- That's what they said about the cranes in Miami.
And that didn't help out,
Those
huh?
people
Those are
in the
what's
world.
exposed.
Well, those are a lot lower to the ground, you know, it's like down here, it's not way up
They
there.
say that because they figure, what's the chance, you know?
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
All right.
We wouldn't have to go with a PPA even if the laws did change
Exactly.
right away.
Nope.
We could wait till a month before the end of the 3 years,
And then bag out, right?
and then,
So you can do just this 1% thing.
You can just do the 1 cent
The
rebate
1
check.
cent, the 1 cent.
You guys could
Let's make it
decide with that
1%.
route.
And that reserves space on the.
That reserves space on our farm, so you're able to make that decision if the laws change to stay on it and double dip. You guys can stay with the Garrett Energy, get 6.9, which actually would turn into 5.9 for you when the farm is turned on. And then any future supplier that you go with, let's say for example, the things are better in 3 years, who knows, right? And all of a sudden he comes in and goes, hey guys, guess what, I just got us a 4.5% supply rate. And because we're on that solar farm that those guys talked about 3 years ago, we're getting a 3.5, and we're getting that 1 cent per kilowatt hour rebate for the next 3 years as well. So you're locked into that. And that's a law that we're saying is literally from what we're hearing about 90% chance going to be changing for 2018. Well, you never know.
I'm smirking. You can't predict anything with the New Hampshire legislature.
No.
Very
I'm
true.
Just trying to tell you,
Yeah.
Very- very
we've been close on things and it's been flipped in committee twice. It just, you can't predict on those guys.
Very true. But him and I have been to a lot of solar committee stuff in various states, so we've seen a lot. So I'm just going by what I've seen as well as what we're hearing from the people right now. The state wants to go solar. It wants to go renewable energy.
Okay, I'm just gonna, we get it.
Yeah, I know you guys are on a time clock.
So, any other questions before we wrap it up? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Be in touch.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Can you send a copy of that presentation electronically to us?
Yes.
Yeah,
Want me to send it
100%.
send it to me and I'll get it up to you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome.
And that's your copy.
Thank you guys
Thank you
so much for your time.
Thanks.
Good night.
I'll do the left-hand shake. It was a pleasure seeing you
Yeah,
again.
fingers still.
Good luck.
We'll be in contact.
Thanks a lot.
It's a pleasure meeting with
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, Dr. Mosley.
Nice to meet you.
Have a good night.
Nice seeing to you as well.
Church.
I know, right? We feel like we should be doing the same.
All right.
No, they don't do that anymore.
You don't do that anymore?
No, you can't.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Good night. Nice presentation.
Pleasure meeting you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thanks for appreciating it.
Absolutely.
All right.
He's awesome, by the way. He's doing a great job of what he does. Just so you guys
It all
know.
goes to his head, don't it?
6.9, yeah, it shows.
Take care, guys. Have a
Let's
great
see.
evening.
Bye now.
Mr. Donovan, the update on the phones, I seem to recall an email saying our phone system was down. Was that the new phone
No,
system?
but it was the citywide,
That's on the new phone system?
it wasn't the phone system itself, it was Fairpoint, so it's not our phone system, so
All right.
Mr. Farrington cannot chuckle.
So
But
phones,
basically-
paving, and credit union is
Yeah,
under
so-
this update.
So very quickly, if you, in your packet, you'll see that we've made a lot of progress on the phone systems. We're live at all 3 middle schools, Broad Street, Birch Hill, the 2 high schools, Ledge Street, and this building are all live with the new system. Then we made the decision to wait 2 or 3 weeks when school opened. It didn't make sense to put in a new system at that point in time. So just starting this week, we're starting with Dr. Crisp, and on that sheet, then Fairgrounds, and sort of goes on down the line. So based on this list, it says we should be all done with day 2 support and complete by October 27th. Don't put any money on it, okay?
I've lost tons on this.
So, but I would guess within the next 30 days, these numbers that I get are always very aggressive from our IT department, so. But that's their hope in there. And then the other thing to remember is, in the high school, we have sort of a phone in every classroom and stuff. When all the work is complete, we will know what the total cost is, if there's any funds available, that they can turn around and put more phones in the classrooms. Because most of the schools don't have phones in the classrooms. The high schools do, and maybe 2 other schools, so he's still hoping to be able to do that.
Mr. Kaufman?
So can you look into, on our behalf, the capability of possibly adding additional phone support in the boardroom? So that we might be,
Boardroom?
yeah, so that we might be able to handle more than one, that the phone capability in that room to dial in or out is working, functional, and if there's an opportunity to add additional.
You can only dial out to one line.
Thank you.
Not sure why that is, but
But it should be working, and if there's the opportunity, I don't know about the system capacity and that
what
kind
we
of.
should do with that phone is to get a free teleconference service and have a number that we use so that board members could dial into it rather than us having to
dial.
contact the board members.
Would we have to do anything for equipment? Like
Not if we did that, because you
I
don't
mean,
have,
would you need
you
one
only
of
need one
these,
line out.
You need a phone though, right?
Well, we have a phone at the North Bar. Here we have a phone that can dial out to multiple people, right? Don't we?
Yeah, that can do.
that's a Polycom, right?
Yeah. So that's the other alternative if we, if it, I mean, I don't want to spend
Well, if it-
$100,000 to fix
Oh,
that
gosh,
system.
okay, then if we have a simple, internet-based Skype thing, WebEx, or audio,
I think that would just make it
system.
easier for that whole process, right? Is to set up some sort of secure,
I'm certainly in
thing.
favor of us
Yeah.
investing time to find out about it, and
Yeah.
if it's a free thing, then
yeah, I
obviously.
think if you don't, I think if you only use it infrequently, I think you can get ones that are free and just maintain the number.
That would be cool.
All right, paving.
Well, wait,
What?
credit union number 2 there.
Well,
So-
it says phones, paving, credit union, so I was going in the
Spun
order.
around on the, sorry, yeah, mix that up. Okay, credit union, question was asked last month, how's that going? The credit union is now open for business. There's an official ribbon cutting this Friday at 9 a.m. They have been, the CTE program's been interviewing students and should have them in place by actually last Friday. They have the curriculum offerings, which I think they shared was when they were here, so if you need a new account, head over to the South High School, and Jean d'Arc Credit Union is more than available for you. If
Just
you'd
use
like
the
to
one
go to
down
the,
street from me.
what's that?
I'll just use the one down the street from me.
Yeah, the new one they opened up, right on Spitbrook?
Yeah.
Yes, that's right, you could do that if you'd like. So that's up and running, and that is now will be another program within the CTE. And then summer paving, you can see next door at Ledge Street,
Yeah,
but
that's
I will
nice.
have Mr. Smith update all the areas.
Okay, so Ledge Street, the paving is done, they still have some cosmetic work to do, some hydro seeding, just, if you take a close look, you can see parts that aren't done. Striping of the parking spaces is done, but the directional arrows and that sort of thing that's a thermoplastic application, so it's not a painted on thing, so they have to come back still and do that. At Pennachuck, we added 7 parking spaces across from the main office. And those are striped and the work is done there.
By that fence?
Yes. And then at Bicentennial, we did approximately half the fire lane in the back of the school. That is complete. And in addition, we raised a lot of the catch basins.
I was gonna say, yeah, I saw them working on that.
So the last piece of paving work is at the North High School. We didn't really award that till the middle of August, I think, is when we transferred the money. So they still have to come up with a schedule for that. That isn't really a paving job, it's more of a crack filler and patching in certain areas. So I'm still working with the DPW engineer on when that might occur.
Is that a weekend thing?
It'd have to be after
hours?
school or weekends. You have to work around our schedule.
At Bicentennial, I know it's not our responsibility, so Bicentennial comes out onto East Dunstable. Something happened there where there was some construction truck there that's basically sliced the road for about 2 feet and left a gap that is just gonna deteriorate over time. I don't know whether that's on the city's radar or not, but, you know, that's a lot of traffic that goes through there, and I can already see it starting to kinda.
So right in front of the school.
No, it's on Bicentennial, so it's at like the stop sign for Bicentennial to get onto East Dunstable,
Okay.
on that right side.
I'll ask about that.
Yeah. All right, any questions on any of that stuff? Nope, all right, moving on.
You're all set.
Playground advertising policy. Finally managed to write some things. Let's see where we're at. So there's 2 things I tried to do here. We heard about BAE and the donation of the aquarium pieces for the marine robotics, right? So that they wanted some kind of recognition for that donation. And then we had the meeting with the PTO from Charlotte Ave that was interested in not only selling the bricks for the walkway that was in the playground, but also for some kind of recognition on the signage. So what I did was, does everybody have a copy? I emailed one to you, Mr. Farrington, right? You have it?
No.
Here,
I'll check my email.
Okay, well, you can take the paper one for now.
Okay, thanks.
So KHB is the advertising and sponsorship in schools. And so I changed the title to be advertising, sponsorship, and recognition in schools. And then I just had a thing at the top to kind of talk about what the policy is for, right? And you know, these names of what we call these entities, I think I might have changed as I went through and edited it, so we can change that. I mean, ideally, generally it's corporations, right? Corporations or local businesses that want to have their names in here. But so just to sort of say that it's kind of like, okay, how do we do that in the district? So there's 3 definitions that were already there. One is about advertising, so that's like they're paying you for basically just having their sign up. Incidental advertising, which is more about you know, when you have these scholastic books, right? It's scholastic books, so that's an advertisement, but it's kind of incidental, no harm done. I added recognition because when I read sponsorship, it seemed a little different, but it may really be the same thing. So sponsorship is defined as the payment of money or other economic benefit to a school or to the district in exchange for recognition by a school or the district. I'm not really sure what that means or who would do that. It sounds like advertising, because you're not doing it for any purpose. You're not doing it to necessarily improve the school. You're doing it as a way to get your name in the building. So we could maybe get rid of sponsorship if we felt recognition was really what we're talking about. So I define recognition as defined as displaying a person or company's name or logo as a way of recognizing their support to the schools through the donation of goods or services as part of a charitable event. Charitable event, I'm not really sure it needs to be in there, but it is, I mean, if they're donating things to the school, it is charitable. I wanted to try to put some language in that would catch those outliers that we're not thinking about right now, that somebody might come in and say, hey, you know, according to this policy, I can get my my business in here.
So can I ask you a question?
Yep.
So if, let's say Coke decides to put a scoreboard at Stello Stadium, Would that be sponsorship or recognition?
Well, maybe that's sponsorship. I mean, I think we've treated it as almost advertising, right?
Yeah.
And Stello's is kind of a different beast because it's always been different in terms, it's not technically school district property, and the rules there have been more liberal about what can be,
True.
what can be shown, right? So I'm trying to catch you, Mr. Conkey.
Thank you. So it's interesting. I mean, it's an interesting dilemma between recognition and sponsorship. And I think it's current usage of words, which is really what the problem is here. I think up until now, sponsorship has been a charitable donation, and it's also been perhaps payment of money or economic benefit. And I think they've overlapped. And I think we are trying to split a hair here, but I appreciate the hair.
Well, no,
because I think there's an interesting and important
I
distinction
think the
to
Coke
make.
display is a perfect example maybe of sponsorship, right? Because they're sponsoring the scoreboard, right? And in return, they want to have their Coke label on there, right? That's a little different than the recognition thing I was trying to get. It's BAE, right? They're making a donation of the thing that doesn't have their name on it. They just like some little plaque that says, you know, we donated this.
Support, yeah.
And the PTO, it enables, I'll get into the
Yes.
language about the PTO, but giving some flexibility to the PTO to allow people to basically pay to get their name on the playground or the bricks, right?
Right, but my comment is about the PTO, because they were looking at having a dinner and people could
Yep.
sponsor a table.
Right.
You know, it wasn't a recognition
No.
table.
Well, no, because if you remember, so there's two things they were doing. One, they
At the
wanted the
banquet.
bricks to be able to have
Yes.
some company
Logo.
names and logos on them, right? That's not, there's only 3 places in the district we've done those kinds of things, and they're very simple bricks. Most of them just have somebody's name on them
Mhm.
or family, right? There's maybe 1 or 2 businesses, but it wasn't even clear from the brick that it was a business, you know? So it was like a family that I know that runs a business, so
Mhm.
it kind of was. And I don't really have personally have a problem with that type of advertising, right? As part of their donation. You know, they're making a donation and they have the PTO for that, and they would be able to put it in. That's what they were asking us for.
Well, I think what you've done here is really tried to accommodate the intent of where I would hope you would go. So, and I think you're clear about wanting to support the PTO in their attempt to raise money for the playground in this case.
Right.
And also to accommodate BAE, and we thank everybody who donates to the district. I just don't know, well, it is what it is, and we want to accommodate the donations, and we want to accommodate those people willing to invest in the school system. So if it's recognition, or it's sponsorship, or if it's a flat-out donation, we thank you. And we want to accommodate the logos and provide the recognition for people who've made that donation.
So
I think I think it's fine.
So if you go to the next, so I left all the advertising stuff, I didn't change. Sponsorships only is in red because I moved it,
You
it
moved
was
it, yep.
above advertising. Just put it in
2
the
questions
sand
for
where-
you. Do you have an extra header in the middle of the page?
No, I don't know why it printed, it probably printed that way because there's a page break that I didn't fix.
Okay.
There's a hard page break in there.
Should the board, as referenced in your next to last paragraph, under recognition, the last line, should that be a capital B?
Approval by the board of the donation?
Yeah.
Well, usually when we say Board of Education, if you look under use of advertising revenue, we capitalize the B.
That's what I'm asking. So would you want
is.
it to be capped?
I'm looking at one that is capped, so maybe you have a different one.
The next to last paragraph, under, first, the word recognition, that long, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah,
5
I see.
lines.
Yeah, superintendent should recommend, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted.
For the sponsorship?
Under recognition. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're
George
arguing
was
about who's gonna
first.
talk here.
Well, one of you talk.
I just, for logistical pieces, to give us more flexibility under sponsorship, I just wrote down school publication. So you have yearbook, school newspapers, school publication, and programs of school-related events. I put just publication. And one of the things I was thinking about is that course is sponsored by BAE. And the other piece to this is the publication, like a newspaper can be both online and like a hard copy.
Yep.
And I've seen newspapers, local school newspapers, have sponsors, as do yearbooks. So I was,
Yeah, but it would also allow, I mean, I think we do it, but we have the e-news, right, which is electronic. It's not really any of these things, so it's pretty general.
So could e-news have?
Well,
a
I think if you say
sponsor?
school publications, well,
So that would be
not a
inclusive?
sponsor, I'm just
But could you
saying,
have
the
advertising?
sponsorships is more about, like, you know, we get donations from Lowe's, right? So we recognize them at the board level, but also, I think sometimes those end up in e-news saying somebody donated money to Ledge Street to do something, right? So it kind of already happens now, but you make it more explicit.
You know what might be interesting is to, maybe for a calendar year or a school year, keep an ongoing recognition thing going for the year.
Well, it's interesting, I had a discussion with Superintendent Mosley before the meeting. I mean, I could almost see at a school having an area where you recognize all the companies that have, you know, given, you know, just sort of off in a corner somewhere. You're not necessarily promoting their business, you're just letting people know that these local businesses have provided things. You know, it's, Elm Street did that, greenhouse. They had several businesses support them. There's no recognition there that they did it, you know, and there should be.
it should be recognized, I agree.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, either at, I guess maybe at each school, we could ask the school to,
Have an
you know,
area.
come up with some kind of, where they have an area where it fits into what the gift is and consistent with the donation. But I think it's nice to be able to
I think that's probably
recognize people, not just an instance, but maybe more on a continuing, something that continues.
So I think that's outside of this policy. I
that's
kind of
fine.
feel like that's probably another step.
Okay.
Mr. Farrington?
Yeah, only because you raised the question if Coke came in and made a contribution. Do we need to address that, and if that was the case? Does that run afoul of our wellness policy and the fact that we don't sell anything like that in the schools anymore?
If you look at,
But at Stellos, we do.
No, I know, if that would be okay at
so-
Stellos, but I'm talking about in our high schools, we've eliminated all that, right? I mean, as far
well,
as-
Coca-Cola's on the vending machine because they provide the water.
Yeah. They have other products, not just soda.
Flavored
Okay,
water.
so they-
But to your point, I mean, so in the first section about advertising, there's this whole last paragraph in the stuff that I changed. I just copied it from above and changed a couple of words. So right after the Board of Education detailed plan. Furthermore, the superintendent has the right to reject a recognition that promotes the use of tobacco, right? So that covers us. I wanted to give the superintendent a lot of latitude to be able to say yes or no, right? So, because he's gonna be the one that's on a day-to-day basis trying to make these decisions. The only one that I put, so when I went to so when I go to recognition, and I don't know whether these are the right words, so there are specific donations to the school district of specialized items, and then I put in parentheses, you know, for example, aquarium tanks for marine robotics, where the district may wish to recognize the donation by placing a small plaque at or near the donated item. The superintendent should recommend to the board as part of the donation approval if a recognition will be included and the design of said recognition. Approval by the board of the donation will also be seen as approval of the recognition plaque or design. Design probably is the right thing.
Do you have to get into the detail of the size?
I mean,
you
I'm
said a
gonna
small plaque,
assume
but I'm just saying-
he's not gonna have a sign that's 4 feet tall, but yeah, probably he could phrase it as a small sign, right? I mean, I don't wanna get too bogged down in
Okay,
detail.
I'm just,
I agree.
and that same paragraph, there's another board in there on the third line,
Yeah.
on the far right.
Superintendent Mosley, you look like you had a question on your face there?
I did, but when you start wordsmithing, it just gets,
No, it's all right, go ahead.
We're used to it.
I was trying to incorporate partnership in that. I don't want to wordsmith this anymore. Donation, and I said something with recognition to the board, the notion improve. Just, I don't want to, it's good. It's a hymn
Well,
sing.
no, so I think what you're getting at is if BAE's got some curriculum that they're going to offer, that's a different beast, right?
It's a little bit more than
It's not an item.
For BAE, in this case, maybe it's just a, kind of an outlier. I think they're looking, in my mind, they're looking for partnership, sponsorship, and recognition. I mean, they're really looking to do a lot more than just give money. They're, and I don't want to get into the details here, but they're more like, we want to make an investment in our kids so that we can grow the workforce around technology and engineering and STEAM. So it's a little bit more than recognition, so to speak. But I think that...
Well, so doesn't that almost fall under sponsorships then? I mean, so they're sponsoring the course, right?
They have, yeah. I mean, they're supplying the tanks and really going, and there's a recognition piece that is incumbent on the school to recognize their contribution. So,
But in the past, didn't they provide instructors as well? I think historically,
I'm not
did
sure about that.
they ever provide
Not
instructors?
BAE.
No.
I guess
I mean,
it'd
they
be the
did with the
first
robotics, the first robotics program, I think they had BAE people
But that was...
helping out.
Okay, but
Yeah,
no.
Mr. Franklin.
Excuse me, two things. One, I'm coming along the same lines with Dr. Mosley, and it may be something beyond this, but I would like to see us get more into that dialogue about an actual partnership, whether it be with BAE and some opportunity for internships at BAE or having some of their people come here and work with some of our students. But also Dr. Mosley and I are going to meet later at the end of this month
Yeah.
with another large
Yeah.
corporation that wants to talk about involvement with our STEM program. And so as we talk to more of these people, we may have a better sense of how to develop that.
Okay, I mean, I can try to come up with some words to make that work. It might be another paragraph, or
That's
it might be that sponsorships and recognitions should just be be called sponsorships and recognitions, but maybe we don't need to be too careful about how we define them. But I do think that falls more under a sponsorship. You know, they're sponsoring internships, or they're sponsoring partnerships, right? Yeah.
I like the word partnership because it really, people are putting their hands into it, they're not just writing a check.
Yeah.
And, you know, and
It's
there's
an
a
investment
real
piece.
commitment and investment,
Yeah.
proactive, where some others might just, anyway, if we could have room for it, and if your suggestion about perhaps combining recognition and sponsorship,
Yeah.
that kind of gets.
I already thought I was probably butting up against Ms. Van Twyver in terms of the length of my title that I now have, so.
It's on one line, you should be fine.
Yeah, I know, but if I added like partnerships, then I
Oh,
wouldn't, I would have brought
well,
it
you
down the
could,
next
you
time.
could get even worse and go collaboration.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think we need to go too far.
such a long word.
Okay, so then on the PTOs, and I tried to make this very specific to PTOs because I really think this is the only other entity that we want entertaining these kinds of things, right? I probably should say shall, Howard, to
There you
you know,
go.
the word
I
shall
missed
instead
one.
of well on the first line
I
there.
gotcha.
In recognition of the tremendous work that our PTOs do to support our schools, the board shall allow the PTO to use the ability to display individual organization/company names and logos on the commemorative bricks and on playground signage or plaques. PTOs must obtain approval from the Board of Education for their detailed plan on where bricks will be placed and or the location of signage and plaques prior to any fundraising activity. Furthermore, the superintendent has the right to reject, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just the same language from above.
Bob, just one small point, should you have something in there about the board will approve for the superintendent, the location and size of the signage? just to make sure that we don't end up with billboards.
Or one of those really bright blue signs that you can claim that everybody's a axe murderer, whatever that guy, you know. I'm probably gonna be on there now.
There you go.
Oh, on Main Street, yeah, on Main Street. Your spacing is kind of weird under advertising. You're going to, you know what I'm saying? You see, if you look at the spacing above the word, under the bulleted, the bolded advertising, first paragraph's fine, the next bulleted paragraph.
Yeah, I think
that
they're actually
spacing-
different font sizes, and
Uh,
this
yeah.
is how it looks in our policy, so I think
Oh,
that's
okay,
just a
just,
cleanup
that's
thing.
what I
that
do,
needs to be done.
sorry. It's what I do.
All right, so,
Move,
so we can do this two ways. I can,
It's amended.
I can add that language, and I can send it to everybody before we get to the next board meeting, and we could move this forward. I don't know whether Ms. Van Cliver will want to take this into policy. I was kind of hoping not, because I think the PTO would like to know that we're ready to go. So I will have a discussion with her and make sure she knows what we're trying to do and see what can happen. At the very least, even if it goes to policy, hopefully it's just sort of a check of our wordage and not, you know, I don't want to have to rewrite the entire advertising policy. So, okay, so go ahead, what do you want to make?
I was just gonna move to recommend the policy KHB as amended to the board or to the policy committee for approval, to the policy committee.
I guess I have to second that because
You're the only. Well,
I
George
think actually
can.
Mr. Farrington.
Yeah.
No, I can only fill in if I'm needed to make a quorum.
That's not true.
No, you can vote.
But you can vote
make-
if there's a member missing.
I'll do what you want. Second. Aye.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna be honest, I perused the procedures, because there is a KHB-R. I think they're pretty minimal, so I don't know that those need to be changed, but I would probably have to go back and review them to make sure they're not inconsistent now with this. So one of those things Elizabeth will catch me on. So why don't we just say we're gonna,
You wanna see it next
we'll
month?
say we'll send it to policy, right, that's what you ended.
That was my,
Okay.
out of respect for Ms. Van Twyver, I know she'd appreciate that.
All right, further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Do we have any transfers, Mr. Donovan, that we have to approve?
Yes, there are transfers you need to approve.
All right.
One is sort of a formality, it's the $100,000 that you officially did approve when this is just the actual entry, so I guess you don't have to necessarily approve this one. This was the $100,000 mayoral adjustment when you reduced our budget. And you did approve this, so this is just the actual entry being put in the system, so. Then there's one for $13,000, and basically what this was curriculum when they budgeted. Bunch of Chromebook carts, they just budgeted it to supplies instead of equipment, so they just needed to fix it. The next one is another curriculum one, and that's basically, we took, for the kindergarten, we bought all the furniture in one purchase so we could save money on quantities, but then as far as carpets and easels and things like that, we transferred money to the schools so they could buy those, because they all wanted different ones. There was no savings there. The next one's the NTC. They're just moving money from the equipment line to the supplies line, because they didn't, sort of another budget issue where they didn't budget right off the bat.
What did you, I'm sorry, Dan, and I know a little bit of this backstory, so to understand this isn't coming directly from you. Who did you speak to Michelle on this one, or was it someone else?
No, Michelle's the one who did the entry.
I guess by moving it, do we still, now do they have authorization to access that money? Or has the money already been spent?
No, they move it so it'll be in the right place. If they budget, let's say 5,000 to supplies, and then they decide they want to buy a computer for 1,000, we tell them, change it so that the charge will go to the right account. And since supplies and equipment are in different groups of accounts, they need to make a transfer entry.
Maybe we'll talk offline, I just want to be, I have a question about this particular transfer. And before it's transferred over, I just would like the three of us, I'm saying Donna, to talk about that. I just want to make sure the money hasn't been spent, correct, encumbered by the ed line?
It may be. It may be. I mean, it goes through the requisition process.
So by transfer, we're just covering what the money has already been spent?
But all the transfer guarantees is that the money is available to spend. The actual approval of the purchase would happen through the requisition process, a different process than this.
Can we just talk offline tomorrow about that? Thank you.
Can I ask just one question about transfers? Like last night at the board meeting, we moved some money around to cover the costs of the two
Right.
teachers for
Right.
the two teachers. Would that come as a transfer here?
Yeah,
Because
then
the
there'll be-
board, for next month, that would
Next
show up
month, you'll
that
see the
way?
actual transfer entry, even
Even though we've already
approved it, just so you can,
see the money move?
yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
I was just procedurally, thank you.
All right. Got a motion there, Howard?
Motion to adjourn?
Nope.
Sorry.
Approve the transfers.
Motion to accept and place on file?
That was last night.
Sorry.
Tonight, we're gonna have.
Got carried away, folks, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, my
hang on, hang on.
apology. Motion
I
to
think your
accept?
motion needs to be to approve the FY18 August transfers and report. Mr. Farrington's going to second it.
Second.
All
Okay,
right.
so moved.
We're not gonna have any more discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And motion passes.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right, Mr. Donovan, you can tell us about one thing, one good thing and one bad thing about the finance report.
Well, it's August, there's
Exactly.
very little here. The first payroll in August was August 31st to the teachers, so you'll see a fairly big number in labor compared to most Augusts. Other than that, and we did make the purchase of those ELA books there, so that's the 250,000 committed. Other than that, like I said, there's not too much. We'll start going into more detail next month as the costs start to hit on a more regular basis.
All right,
Can I
move
ask
to
just
accept
one-
and place on file the FY18 August financial transfer report, seconded by
Mr.
Mr.
Kaufman.
Kaufman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion passes. Mr. Donovan.
I
Sorry,
just,
Mr. Kaufman.
thanks. Sorry, had in my head, had to do with all the end of year stuff. Sorry.
What the final end of year number was, or?
Well, yeah, the special ed is, thank you, yeah. I know the last time we saw you, at least
Yeah,
in
the
this
final
committee.
special ed number was about $5.45 million.
Right, which
for
is
the
about
out-of-district.
400, about 400 over.
Well,
Was
it
that-
was about 400 over what we were estimating. It was
Right.
well over that on the budget line. Now, we
Okay.
did increase the budget for this year at about 4.8 million, but if it stays at the 5.4, then we've got that $600,000 delta. The advantage we have this year over last year was we do have a special revenue fund where the students that come to our
Oh, they pay
come in,
tuition?
and we didn't charge any money for tuition there, I think about 30,000 that we charged there. So that fund has grown. We get about 350 or so a year. That was starting to decline because we were charging more to the account than we were bringing in. This year, for the first time in the last 3 years, we were able to bring more money in than we charged there. So we do have a little bit
So there's
more.
almost a surplus in that account?
In a
mild.
sense, I wouldn't call it a surplus, but there
We haven't
is.
spent it yet, it's a surplus,
Yes, I mean, at the
right?
end of last year, it was pretty low,
Okay,
so it really was hard to use hardly
okay.
anything, but
Okay.
where that account is in a lot better shape. So if you think of that kind of as a reserve, if something really bad happens, that's one of the
No,
places we
I'm just
use.
thinking to cover our tuition, that, for our outer placements, in other words.
Yes, no, and there'll, some of those, yeah, but, and that's if there's more costs this year that can't be put into the operating budget, because we don't
Okay.
have other accounts that are
Okay, we have
higher.
a special
We do
fund.
have this fund to handle that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next month, do you remember the guy who was here when we had the first solar presentation from the city committee? I'll send
Sat in
you
the back.
his- I'll send you his name, it's Mike or Mark. I can't
The
remember
city
which one.
committee, yeah, Sean has his name, I know that.
There's also someone else that,
Wants to
woman.
come.
so I'll send you the names, I have them. Can we put them on the agenda for next month?
Yeah, there's a gentleman that we,
The city is also looking at solar
Yes, they
stuff
are.
and storage and, you know, all kinds of things, so we should just have a discussion with them before we make any.
yeah, the third version of the solar possibility. So we'll have that, is that what you're
Well,
talking
I
about?
don't know whether that, no, this is different, because I think Sean is actually bringing somebody in who will just put the solar panels on our roofs.
That we would
Okay, so
own.
you're not
This
talking
is,
about that.
well, I think it's I didn't get a lot of details. I was just asked to invite them so that they could come and talk to us about what we're doing, what they're doing,
Okay.
for on this committee. And I will send you those names. I apologize, I don't have them off the top of my head. Now, Mr. Coppin.
Thank you. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Farrington. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion passes. We're out of here at 8:45.
Briefly,